Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting, thrill-packed edition of the Jim Cornette Experience, right here, wherever, as Brian Last often says, you find your favorite podcast. And today we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And boy, was there some bowling shoes on display this past Wednesday night of the Empty Arena Ratings Wars. Also, memories of Mama Cornette and who the heck knows what else. And joining me, I've mentioned him already, but he deserves two introductions. Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting line, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. He's the man who aged 20 years in one night watching the horrible show at Extreme Rules from the WWE, and now his hair has turned so gray that dye can't help him. I'm dying on this bit. Ladies and gentlemen, your friend and mine, the great Brian Last. What the fuck, Brian?
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here. In case you haven't noticed from all the different valets and women wrestlers right now, gray hair is in. I'm sexy, baby.
Yeah, you're bringing sexy back. And
you said the good, the bad, and the ugly. There was some good this week. I actually enjoyed Wednesday Night Wrestling more this week than I have in quite a while.
Well, once again, that's like saying, you enjoy it so much when you quit banging your head against a concrete wall because it feels so good when you stop.
Well, that too.
But no, there was some good. There was some bad. There was some ugly. We'll go over it all. And yes, your hair may not have turned gray, but you switched places with me. I just rolled over after that show and pretty much, the last couple of weeks, actually, with the preposterousness, the preposterosity that we have seen on these programs, I just started laughing at it and just trying to make fun of it because what the fuck are you going to do? Whereas you got violently angry and on the edge of becoming Jim Cornette, we've switched places, and we have watched a lot of modern what they call wrestling these days, and I was going to ask. What else? People are always saying, why don't you watch this? Why don't you watch that? Because we watched Raw and it sucked. We watched SmackDown and it sucked. We determined that the best program from the largest wrestling organization on the planet is NXT. So we've been watching that. AEW we started watching because I couldn't believe that they would actually do the things that I was afraid that they were going to do on television. And lo and behold, they have. And at one point, I cracked up and said never again. But then as we talked about, the people demanded it. Give the people what they want because we had the 200,000 or so, give or take, on the given week that are only watching it to make fun of it because they can't find anything else to watch either. There's no new shows now. People say, why don't you review the NWA or MLW? Well, right after I'd been on those programs or while I was on them, that didn't seem cricket. To be, because I've got the finger on the scale there, right? And then now people have said, well, now Ring of Honor nor the NWA nor MLW are producing new programs. I guess we could watch the MLW stuff they shot in Florida in 2004, but it seems the immediacy is gone. I'm sure it's fine programming. I tried to fucking watch that Carneyland program that the NWA put out because I was intrigued by the name and what the fuck is this going to be about? And I got about 7 minutes into one of them. I said, I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but it was a chance for a lot of the talent to sit in front of their computer and get on video Skype. So nobody watches Impact on purpose these days, do they? Could you be in the Federal Witness Protection Program and be on the Impact roster and advertised and still not fear for your life?
Well, lately, yes, although I will say more people have been paying attention to Impact and writing to us about Impact in the last couple of weeks than any time in recent memory besides any Tessa Blanchard scandals.
Scandals?
Scandals, I can't
Scandals?
But, Gallows and Anderson are now there. Some of the guys that got released by WWE are there. Eric Young was just on. I don't know if he's returned or if he was just on the Slammiversary show.
But weren't they doing some kind of teleportation or other dimension before it was even fashionable here this past since the pandemic? Didn't they have somebody that was sent to a goddamn? I was reading the description of it on the internet, and someone was sent to another dimension. I don't fucking know. I hate to trust anybody's opinion anymore on, oh, well, so boy, it's the best program it's been in a while, which once again, being the nicest guy in prison, but also, what have these people been watching? What is their taste? If it's better than the other program where the guy comes out of another dimension in the ice machine, I don't fucking know. But it's getting depressing, especially now that so many other people that were doing good, bad, and ugly are shut down, that we're down to this Wednesday night conflict for this ever meager and diminishing group of viewers from the one program that tries to do things seriously but so much looks sterile and the same, and the other program that you have to watch like you fucking watch Benny Hill when you're fucking drunk at night. And this is what wrestling has become these days. And now if Raw keeps falling, the Raw ratings will NXT is going to catch Raw here fairly soon. I'm not sure which direction they'll be going. NXT may just stay the same and Raw fucking drop down to meet it.
If that happens, do you think Vince starts putting his hands all over NXT?
You're gonna get these hands. That's what he said. You're gonna get these hands, pal. I'm putting my hands all over it. Now, that might cause consternation in the living room at home in Greenwich. You know, that might be the one thing that would cause consternation in the living room in Greenwich. But here's what we're fighting over. When I was thinking about looking at it this way, the combined audience in the entire United States of America for both AEW and NXT on major networks available in 100 million or so, give or take, homes, is approximately not even 1.5 million, right? If I'm doing this math right. If they're fighting over 700,000, give or take. So let's say 1.5 million. The number of people watching at its peak in the early 80s, Memphis wrestling, not in the entire territory, just on WMC TV Channel 5 in Memphis, was around 250 to 300,000. Everybody who's go open a fucking road atlas or look it up on your phones, you young folks. You look at the city of Memphis, and WMC was the strongest broadcast station. And it went all pretty much to the outskirts of Jackson, Tennessee, to the west. That's about 80 miles. And on the Arkansas side and the Mississippi side, for anybody who's ever driven out that way, once you go across the bridge into Arkansas or you get down into Mississippi, you've got 100 miles of flat. You could notice a goddamn molehill. So the signal went, pretty much close to Little Rock, Arkansas, and halfway down to Jackson. But in that 100-mile roughly radius around Memphis, Tennessee, every Saturday morning from a little fucking studio on a local television station, there were 250, 300,000 people watching that program. Now in the entire United States of America, 5 times that much, watching these two programs try to fight it out. Are we going to be talking about the Federal Witness Protection Program and AEW or NXT or the entire wrestling business fairly soon? People are impressed with these ever-shrinking numbers because they win the demo.
Do you think, obviously it's a different world now than it was in the early 80s in terms of television and the way people react to television. So much is on demand, so much is on YouTube. People watch what they want when they want to watch it. They may or may not DVR something. They may just watch it on demand. But for the most part, wrestling shows are on weeknights at night. Do you think nowadays, in 2020, and I know you're out of touch, so I take that, I grade with a curve on the answer here, but do you think wrestling needs weekend programming? And do you think wrestling needs, like when I was a kid, I used to watch, when I got into wrestling, WWF Superstars of Wrestling, Saturdays 10 a.m., Wrestling Challenge Sundays at noon on Channel 5 in New York. Now, I'm sure I guarantee kids watch more local television in 1989 than they do today. I mean, there are no Saturday morning cartoons on any channel anymore.
Right.
On broadcast TV. So it's a different world. But weekend wrestling, I mean, TBS, you had a Friday night show, a Saturday morning show, a Saturday night show, and a Sunday night show. We don't have anything really on the weekends. I mean, pay-per-views on weekends, big events are on the weekends. In the past, a big event during the week would be the Clash of the Champions. That was it. There was nothing on during the week. What do you think about that flip? The idea that now things are on Mondays or Wednesdays or Fridays, but nothing's on really to speak of Saturday or Sunday.
Well, I remember the original Clash of Champions was on a Sunday.
Right, but
because it counter-programmed WrestleMania.
But other than when they were counter-programming WrestleMania, it was on during the week usually.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, and actually in Memphis, as an example, television wrestling with the territories in the 50s and 60s was generally definitely on the weekends because that's where most of the television sports programs aired. And wrestling back then was listed in the TV guide up through the 70s under the sports section in the front, where it had all the sports, football, baseball, basketball, racing, wrestling. And you would see at a glance all the sports listings, but everything was on weekends. There was no Monday Night Football. It was primarily in a lot of the markets, especially down south, late afternoon, early evening programming. It was in blocks with roller derby. Or I remember one time the Sons of Hercules in the early 70s. This Italian Hercules series was stripped with wrestling. Well, Hercules and the big wrestlers. And then in the major markets, New York and Los Angeles, a lot of cases, if you could get on television when you could, because they were major markets, it was the independent station and it was late at night. WOR, late at night wrestling in New York, etc. But Lance Russell, when he was the program director at WHBQ 13 in Memphis in the 60s, he's the one who first said, you know what, let's try it in the mornings, because they were at 3:30 in the afternoon and doing big ratings. Wrestling always did well in Memphis on television. But everybody thought he was crazy because that was Saturday morning cartoon time. And when I was a kid, the fall preview TV guide came out. You went to the cartoon section Saturday morning on all three networks from 7:30 to fucking noon or 12:30 was wall-to-wall kids cartoons, Johnny Quest, the fucking Herculoids, whatever, right? All of the wacky races. So anyway, everybody thought it was crazy. That's for kids. Well, let's give them something else than the kids programming. But kids watched wrestling in Memphis anyway. So they moved to 11 o'clock in the morning, became the biggest ratings hit in the country. And then other markets started doing more Saturday morning wrestling. But syndication and local television, like you said, was different in those days. There is nothing on the local stations during the days on Saturday and Sunday, really, except for network sports programming that anybody wants to fucking watch, local or network, especially on Saturday mornings. And even in Smoky Mountain Wrestling in the 90s, we had a Saturday or Sunday morning time slot in Knoxville at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. So, we kicked the shit out of the other programs because it was church services, and Meet the Press would beat us in the overall rating because of their incredible demo from 60 and up, right?
So wait, you would win the main demo against Meet the Press? You were the demo god back in the 90s?
Yeah, well, I was the demo god. No, we basically won the ratings on our little Fox station. We won the ratings over the ABC and CBS stations, and Meet the Press, which was on NBC, would beat us in terms of overall number because everybody in the goddamn town 60 and over was watching Meet the Press. But otherwise, we would win the other shit. And in the Tri-Cities, Saturday, we were on Saturday and Sunday during the run, but same thing around noontime. And we did better numbers there than any of the other programming because they were starting to go to infomercials and just news and public affairs things in the 90s. So people were looking for a program they wanted to watch on the weekends. And now, I don't know. I think that OVW had huge success Saturday late night at 11 o'clock. You were after the network block and the local news. But you weren't at the same time, you weren't past midnight where you're fighting sleep, and a legitimate TV program can air from 11 to midnight on Saturday. We were the perfect time for our pizza sponsor, 11 o'clock on Saturday night. Guys watching wrestling and want to call and get fucking pizza delivered. But when you get time slots that are after midnight, regardless of what the fuck day it's on, you just look, not only do you look small time, but you're playing to a very diminished audience. The drop off is sharp in television between 11 o'clock and right after midnight. So I don't know. Nobody is in the habit, like you said, of watching television on the weekend days anymore. Weekend nights. I always thought, why didn't somebody give Friday night a try? Maybe a Friday night, hour and a half, 11:30 to 1 o'clock wrestling program, where, especially now, people aren't out like they used to be on Friday night. But Saturday night's main event did well.
Yeah.
It did better than Saturday Night Live at first until the two became indistinguishable. So, if you've got a program people want to see and it's on at a reasonable time on a station that most people have access to, they will find it and watch it. But when you're, shouting in the fucking empty woods on a station that nobody's watching, or you're at a time slot where it's obvious that you're not in any way fucking major league, you're pissing in the wind.
I imagine if you're working a 9-to-5 job, watching wrestling on a Monday night is rough if it's for 3 hours also, which is just ridiculous. But if you really are into AEW or NXT or both, and there's 4 hours of programming on a Wednesday night, it's difficult. If it's Saturday night, 6:05 was perfect because a lot of people are home for dinner. A lot of people are getting ready to eat, so you're in the house.
Yeah.
It's just nothing's on the weekends.
And here's another thing. In those days, people usually had one television in the house. And then the kid would become a teenager and wangle his own, so he had two. But then the ratings in those days, it was like every household that you got credit for like 2.5 people. So the homes and the viewers watching were radically different than they are now, where it's almost the same thing, and it's like 1.2 people per home. Or the last I checked, it could be now, it may be even 1 and 1. But
the Power Hour on Fridays when you were in the NWA, it was 10 p.m., right?
Yeah, if the Braves would get out of the way.
Right, if the Braves would get out of the way, it'd be 10 p.m. How did that do in the ratings when it first started?
Oh God, now that you've busted me and I can't reach the Midnight Express scrapbook, million and a half people, or million and a half homes, I think, God damn it. Hold on 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves.
Right now, we have an exciting moment for the cult of Cornette. The Exalted One himself, Mr. Jim Cornette, going to his cabinet, getting his book, searching for those ratings to give you the most accurate and up-to-the-date information about the ratings in 1989 on the NWA Power Hour show.
All right, Friday now I don't really remember exactly where that I would have the ratings here, but I'm going to go where I suspectify that there might be some, just to give you some.
Sounds like an Ultimate Warrior word. Suspectify.
I'm suspectifying. Okay, here. Well, now this was the Sunday night main event. Just for, and I'm still looking, but just for example, the Sunday night main event when Ric Flair defended the NWA title against Bobby Eaton on. Well, we taped it on December 14th in Peoria, Illinois. It aired on January 7th, 1990. That was a 3.2 rating and a 5.0 share, which was 1,667,000 homes. That was the Sunday night program.
So like what you said earlier, not viewers, homes.
Homes. Yeah. So at that point, it was still a couple of people per home. So you were looking at about 3.5 million people watching. Hold on here. Another spot. Aha, here we go. Well, we're going to February 1990. I'm still looking for Power Hour ratings, but the Clash of Champions, for example, from Corpus Christi that we've talked about so much, where Sting got hurt right before the big Wrestle War match. That Clash did a 4.5 rating and a 6.7 share in 2,425,000 homes. The main event peaked at a 5.9 rating in nearly 4 million homes. I am looking for, here we go. Goddamn, I still can't find any Power Hour fucking ratings. A Saturday night WCW show. The one that aired on February 17th, 1990, the main event was Ric Flair and Brian Pillman. That was just the regular 6:05 Saturday night TBS show, but it was obviously a, attractive main event. Did a 4.0 rating, 7.8 share, 2,130,000 homes. That was the actual best rating since February 1987 on the Saturday night show, and an all-time high in viewers on the Saturday night show because of TBS's increasing availability. The next night, the Sunday main event with Flair and Arn against the Rock and Roll Express did a 4.4 rating. An 8.2 share, was in 2,324,000 homes, or about 5 million viewers. And that was the best TBS number since December 1985, and an all-time on a regular series, not the Clash, etc., and an all-time high for the Sunday program. And right after that, Flair quit as Booker because Hurd wouldn't leave him the fuck alone. So, I don't know what I think Hurd said one day, well, we expected a 5. You fucking moron.
I'm looking here because I got a collection of Steve Beverly's Matt Watch.
Matt Watch. I could go in the closet, but it would take forever, and you'd almost never get me out of the closet.
Okay, these are the ones from 93 and 94 when he came back. Let me move these. Jamie Ward lent me a bunch of the originals, but then I just got my own collection of a bunch of them. This is from after you had already left. This is from June of 1991.
Oh, the ratings were the shits at that point.
So I have the WWF and the WCW ratings. WCW main event, TBS, June 16th. My microphone fell. June 16th. Did a 2.5 rating and a 6.5 share, 1.47 million homes.
Yeah, that wasn't very good.
The Power Hour, Friday night, TBS, June 15th. 1.6 rating, 7.9 share, 948,000 homes. So that wasn't good.
Oh, see, well, when I was the host, we didn't have no 900,000.
This one we could do a comparison. World Championship Wrestling, Saturday night, June 15th. Oh, I guess the Power Hour aired the same day? I guess that's what happened here. 2.5 rating, 6.7 share, 1.43 million homes. A year earlier, it was 2.9 with a 7.4 share. So,
okay, well, a year earlier would have been when I was the host.
Yeah, so it went from 2.9 to 2.5 and 7.4 to 6.7.
Well, see?
The Cornette bump? Is that what you're saying here?
I've always got the 7.4 instead of the 6.2.
For comparison's sake.
Whatever the fuck that was.
I get the issue here from, this one is from January 94, but it covers December 93. And if we're looking at WCW, the week ending December 13th, WCW Power Hour did a 1.3 rating, a 4.8 share with 802,000 viewers. And then the Saturday night show did a 2.5 with a 5.0 share, 1.539 million viewers, ranked 28th.
Homes or viewers?
Excuse me, homes.
Homes,
Forgive me. Monday Night Raw, 3.3 rating, 5.0 share, 2,051,000 homes, and was ranked number 9. So Raw doing better then than it is now.
Well, we've just numbered everybody up. But the point is that when you look at that also, between the Power Hour on Friday night, the Saturday night TBS show, and the Sunday night main event, we had a total of 6 hours, right? 2 hours Saturday night. Well, no, 4 hours. I'm sorry. 1 hour on Friday night, 2 hours on Saturday night, 1 hour and 4 hours with the same guys every weekend. And the combined viewership for all three shows was what? Fucking 5 million plus homes. And it wasn't even a goddamn the pay-per-view quality matches. So I'm not impressed with the modern numbers because there's nobody there. Because of the silliness, which we'll get into. But that's where everybody says, "Why aren't you thrilled with these numbers? What the fuck?" We had local television in regional territories out there. I guarantee you add up Bill Watts's 4 top markets, and it totals the viewership of both programs on Wednesday night.
What do you think, like, let's say 1986, the TBS show versus the syndicated NWA Crockett Promotion shows?
Oh, well, I forgot about syndication also, because we had another 2 hours. Crockett did every weekend in almost every city. Every city had one of the syndicated shows, and most cities had 2 of the syndicated shows. Charlotte and a few of the other Carolinas towns, markets were so hot for TV wrestling that they not only had the 2 weekly syndicated hours, but they had the half-hour Tony Schiavone hosted Super Bout series where they just played tapes of dark matches that they had taped at TV tapings. And that was on TV. And those were all strong broadcast stations. So there was a few million people just in the Carolinas watching the weekly syndication, I know, and then whatever the ratings were as they spread out. Because how if you're on 3 of the 4 strongest broadcast stations in Charlotte, North Carolina, which at that time still was a city of several 100,000 people, how are you not? Saturday night at 7 o'clock was one of them. Sunday morning at 11 o'clock was another one. Weekend daytime time slots. If they aired a test pattern in those days on those stations, you'd get 30 or 40,000 fucking viewers. So
Right now, you have a bunch of young listeners saying, "What the hell's a test pattern?" What do you mean the channel went off the air? I don't understand. What do you mean?
Or color bars. They could air color bars. And boy, I remember when TV started going on all night long and didn't sign off the air here in Louisville. 1978, we had a big blizzard that winter. And one of the local stations, I think it was Channel 11, came up with Cabin Fever Theater and showed movies all night. And why, that was just swell. TV on all night? What the fuck are you talking about? Anyway, we real quick, we got an update on Bobby Fulton. We talked about his newest health issues on the drive-through this past week, which was late because we were trying to get a hold of him to get an update on his health issues. And also they tweeted this out. The one thing that we were mistaken about, and that's a good thing, is that his cancer has not returned. He has not been diagnosed with new cancer. What had happened was, and if you didn't hear the drive-through, if you did, pardon as we go through some of these details again, but he had the chemotherapy and the radiation treatment on the cancer he'd been diagnosed with, and they declared him back in June. He was cancer-free, and he stopped the treatments, is trying to get, his health and energy back and everything. But he started bleeding from the throat, and he was coughing up blood and didn't know what was going on. Obviously, as a member of his family took him to the hospital. But what had happened was one of the arteries in his neck had been damaged by the cancer treatments and had burst somehow, and was not only bleeding outside, but also internally, and was something that needed to be addressed. So they took him to the hospital, and when they're telling him what the fuck's going on, because obviously he had no idea what the fuck is happening here, it's like out of a goddamn horror movie, they told him the artery is right near where your tumor is, making him think that he had another tumor, which is what he told his son, which is why his son tweeted for him that he had a recurrence or been diagnosed again or whatever. And you would think, well, wouldn't you ask a few questions like that? But okay, he's just been rushed to the hospital because he's bleeding from the fucking mouth, and people are telling him shit while he's going to have surgery or undergo a fucking procedure or whatever. So it was like, okay, he accepted that, and on drugs at the time. But the next day after they'd done the thing and been in there and clamped it off and he was more coherent, they clarified to him that no, it was where his cancer was, but not is. So he does not have anything new right now. And they have apparently, hopefully, solved the problem with the artery. And then we're waiting to hear more on that. And he's going to be in the hospital, which is a good place to be after all that, around the doctors and the medicine and et cetera, for a little while yet, while they keep an eye on him. So that's more positive than what we had the other day.
Well,
but
once again, get well, Bobby. Everyone loves you. Everyone wants you to be healthy. So hopefully this all turns out for the best.
Yeah, but holy shit, I'm the kind of person I would have a fucking writing pad. Now, if I couldn't speak because I was spurting blood out my neck, I'd be writing granularly detailed questions for the doctors on exactly what are you saying here?
Do you think if something happened to you and you couldn't speak ever again?
Oh, good Lord.
Would you become a more prolific writer?
Yes, I would. I'd be telling everybody off on the printed page. I certainly would.
Because you're not doing that already. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Speaking of the printed page, there are many printed pages at jimcornette.com in the books that I have written and or been responsible for. Some people might say culpable for. JimCornette.com and Cornette's Collectibles operating again after our shutdown to catch up with the record business. We restocked. We're back up. We're still working on the concepts and the details on the new website, but this one, as long as you don't storm it all at the same time, folks, this one's doing fine and holding up, and you can get your books, Cult of Cornette membership certificates, classic wrestling DVDs, classic wrestling interview DVDs, autographed photos, T-shirts, burger towels, and more. JimCornette.com. If you ordered through Monday morning about 8 a.m. Eastern on July 20th, your stuff is in the mail, and July 20th through 24th, if your stuff came in during those days, that stuff will start going out tomorrow. But still remember, pandemic and an old, decrepit wrestling manager allow 2 to 3 weeks for delivery after you order, just to keep me sane and reasonable and rational. But I'm keeping up with it. As long as Bree did 82 separate items, different types of packages and etc. in 37 minutes the other morning. I mean, she started smoking. It just steam started coming from her. So anyway, but as I say, still do allow me a little extra time to keep me from getting back in. I was tearing my hair out there for a while trying to keep up with this. And that's not a thing that I need to do because I have so little to work with at this point. And as a matter of fact, well, this would be a good segue. Guess what, folks? If you're losing your hair, we can help you now. Normally, we can help you if you need counseling. We can help you if you need food. We can help you if you need cool items to enhance your living. Now, if you need to keep your hair, we can help you with that too, because we have talked to the fine folks at Keeps. Keeps. Did you know, Brian Last? I bet you didn't, because you're such a well-groomed, metrosexual fucking designer type of guy with that fucking jet black hair of yours and all of your fucking good looks and everything. But 2 out of 3 men are going to experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35 years old. Mine didn't even start that soon. And the best way to prevent hair loss is to do something about it while you still have hair left. That's the big thing. And Keeps is the place to go to keep your hair. Notice we didn't say it's not keeps.com. It's not getback.com. It's keeps.com. If you're as bald as a billiard ball right now, if you're as bald as a peeled egg, if you are as bald as Kojak, if you are as bald as Stone Cold Steve Austin, Keeps cannot help you because you got nothing to keep. But if you have started losing your hair through that evil male pattern baldness and you still have some, the sooner you start, the more hair you're going to save. Prevention, as they say, is the key, and Keeps treatments can take up to 4 to 6 months or more to see results. So if you act fast, the more your hair that you will save, and you can get treated from home. You used to have to go to the doctor and get a prescription and then go to a drugstore. You had to go to where all the sick people were. Now you don't have to do that. You can visit the doctor online. You can get the medication delivered to your home, and they deliver it every 3 months, so you can say goodbye to the pharmacy checkout lines and the doctor visits around all the plague-ridden pandemic people. So, the only thing, as I say, that you have to fear from hair loss is being fucking bald. So you need to get on this. And once again, it's not getback.com, it's keeps.com. You need to have some hair to start with, folks. This isn't some miracle Native American Indian remedy. And also, we should mention that not everybody is guaranteed, because it's like when I had landscaping put in one time, Brian. I said, now, are these guaranteed? I said, if you plant them and next year they don't come in, what do I do? And they said, well, we'll replace them, but they're living things. You can't guarantee a living thing. Well, hair is a living thing. So you can't, it's not guaranteed to work. It works for some, not for others, but you got to give it a try, or elsewise you're going to end up with a top of your head slickered and come on a gold tooth. And by the way, for people who have asked, you can't smear this on your face and grow a big beard or whatever. It's on the top of your head only, the place that normal people have hair and go bald at. Anyway, here's what you do to save some money and some hair. You go to keeps.com/JCE and you will get your first month of treatment for free. Keeps.com, KEEPS.com/JCE. You will get your first month treatment for free. I don't know what else in the world. The only other thing I can do for you is if I come over there and rub your scalp personally. And it depends on what your scalp looks like and actually what you look like as to whether I would do that or not. Okay. I'm not going to be rubbing your scalp, Brian.
That's just fine. My jet black and somewhat grayish hair is doing all right without you rubbing my scalp.
Yeah, you rubbed me the wrong way.
You can check me for lice if you want. One of those popsicle sticks like they used to do in school. They check your hair with it.
I might just check your oil. How about that? And see what goes on there. All right, hold on here. I'm trying to find these emails. Give me a second. We got a big budget here on this program. Okay, there we go. I got them now.
You never have these emails in front of you on the screen in your actual email. You print them out so you have them ready.
Well, I print them out so I can have them in my hand and read them and keep track of them. They're not real on the screen. I would have to actually find that specific email. And if I don't have it on paper where I keep it in my stack of daily things to address, then I would forget about it. So I got it right here. Anyway, there were a few of these, and they somehow came in a group, and I thought we would talk a little bit about it because they're all centering on Mama Cornette. I'll read an example. Michael wrote, "You were so brilliant with promos about Mama in the 80s that there were times I thought she would appear on the show. In the years you talked about Mama, did any of the promotions you worked for want to give you an on-screen Mama? And if they did, would she have been a babyface to your heel?" And there was another one that said, did any of the promoters you worked for in the early days want to give you a Mama? I could see Dusty Rhodes calling Mama as a last resort to get your character to behave himself, or what my character, or would she have been a heel? And somebody else had tweeted, did they ever suggest or try to have a Mama Cornette anywhere that we worked, right? So Mama Cornette is the most famous wrestling personality that actually did exist in real life, yet never, ever made one single appearance. Think about that. There have been fictitious people that have been referred to. Blackjack Mulligan used to populate his interviews with all the citizens from Eagle Pass, Texas, or, Killer Carl Cox had Alex, his imaginary friend, or whatever the fuck. But Mama Cornette was the only person who's an actual legitimate person that existed in the world and was referred to on all those programs that we just talked about, that were she was heard about, talked about on programs that were heard and seen by millions of people every week. Never made one appearance, never did one interview, was never seen one time, never even a picture was revealed of her specifically saying this is Mama Cornette. That's got to be some kind of record, right?
I think so.
You have to.
I can't think of any other examples. I mean, was President Shinma ever on WWF TV? I don't know.
Well, but his picture was in the fucking program.
That's true.
Yeah, there you go. No, and see, the whole thing started and we're not going to go through. I was born of a small black child in a log cabin, right? We're not going to, but just to briefly, the only reason that it came up was Jerry Jarrett wanted to make me a manager. And because I had been seen in every town in his territory since I was 14 years old as the ringside photographer, what is a plausible, somewhat realistic explanation that we can give for the ringside photographer suddenly becoming a wrestling manager? Well, and everyone had seen, because since I didn't have a driver's license when I was 14, my mom driving me to the matches. And then later on, as she began working for Christine Jarrett herself, doing the merchandise tables in not only Louisville, but Lexington and Evansville. And then while I was ring announcing the spot show, she was handling the gimmick table all by herself in those towns. So we were traveling together, so they knew I had a mother. And Gary Hart, the Playboy, had done the old, rich Chicago family gimmick years ago. So Jerry Jarrett sat me down and said, we're going to give you the Gary Hart gimmick. People didn't know whether my mom was rich or not, right? So it was a way to explain to the people and be logical enough and credible enough for the standards of the time that it could explain how somehow I've bought my way in, and the only people that want to take this sucker rich kid for a ride are naturally the heels. Well, that was a way to explain how I showed up, and also a way to get heat on me. And we played that up big in Memphis, obviously. But from the time that I started as a manager, nobody ever saw Mama Cornette again. And I've told this story in the places that didn't know her, like in Memphis and Jonesboro and down at the other end of the territory that she never went. She was a heel because they just heard about this, this rich, obnoxious woman that had this fucking loudmouthed, obnoxious kid. But in the towns that people knew her and were used to her and had known her for years, she was a babyface and I was a heel. And people would say, your mother'd be ashamed of you if she would see you right now. No wonder she doesn't come around here anymore. And I almost had more heat because they loved my mom so much that they couldn't imagine that I'd turned out to be such a fucking prick. And no wonder she was ashamed to show up anymore and see what a fucking asshole her son was. So it worked there too. But while she had appeared at many wrestling events, she never actually appeared as part of the show. When I started, that's when she faded into the ether. And Jerry Jarrett obviously knew, my mom had many talents, but being a television performer was not among them. And he was smart enough to know also that the Mama Cornette that we had built in people's minds was better than real Mama Cornette could have ever been as far as being a wrestling heel. She wasn't an obnoxious looking person, or she didn't look like, goddamn, Margaret Dumont in the Marx Brothers movies, this high society, haughty fucking fat woman. And she wasn't going to be cutting any promos. It was just the idea of her that helped me get heat. And he would never have dreamed of. And of course, there was no way to have a fake Mama Cornette and have somebody play her because so many people in the territory knew what she looked like because they'd seen her. So it was never talked about in the Tennessee territory. Then we go to Mid-South. Watts loved the gimmick because that's why he picked me. He got so much heat. And it was different than, Skandor Akbar and all the stuff that the managers in his territory had done before. But once again, he never even asked me, can your mom cut a promo? It would have been ridiculous, right? And he was too much of a stickler for credibility to have ever hired anyone to play her, because then also, even though the TVs weren't national in those days, I'm sure there would have been an issue because fucking Little Rock TV for Watts crossed over into Memphis TV for Jarrett, and Jarrett would have been mad. Hey, you assholes are exposing my business up here. They know that's really not Cornette's mother. But it would have been cartoon for Mid-South. The heat was me talking about my rich mother that was never seen, but that had always bailed me out of every jam and bought my way into anything that I wanted to be involved in. And Watts was a master he got heat on the tennis racket to the point where the people popped when he announced on television that the racket had been banned from ringside. He got heat on my mother, even though they'd never seen her or heard her speak, just because of the concept of her. He knew how to get a heat on me as being the most ineffectual, or effeminate, or fucking, wimpy, pussified, coward. He knew how to magnify every negative quality that any heel might possess or could play the part of possessing on television, just like he knew how to maximize every positive attribute of a babyface and minimize everybody's weaknesses. So Mama Cornette was stronger than ever in Mid-South, but once again, it wasn't right to actually see her. That would have taken the credibility that it had and made it gaga. But as you know, where Watts was a master, then we go to Dallas. And when we got there, it was like, okay, it's your gimmick, go out and talk about your mother, right? Ken Mantell was the biggest placeholder booker I've ever seen in my life. We go from Bill Dundee, that one of the best finish men in the business in the 80s. He could give you incredible finishes. Bill Watts then, giving us those Eddie Graham TV angles where everybody has to be in the right place at the right time, and each individual step in the finish has a spotlight, and everybody's got to be right on point. And these multi-phase angles and things. And we go from that to the exact opposite, where in Dallas, Ken Mantell was the babysitter for the Von Erich boys. The top heels that were working with the Von Erichs at that time, Gino Hernandez, Chris Adams, and one-man gang through Gary Hart. Gang was cool and just did his job and didn't pitch everything. But the top guys that worked with the Von Erichs pitched shit to Ken Mantell, and a lot of it through Gary Hart. And Ken just wrote it down because he was the most uncreative booker. His finishes made no sense. I couldn't get his angles. We couldn't figure it out. And we've talked about, we go in there with the Fantastics, and we have a match where the tag team title is held up between the two teams the first week of March or whatever, and it's still held up in Texas Stadium 2 months later. We didn't even know why. The whole goddamn run was confusing. But at that point, no, they literally, all those personality profiles where, Sunshine and Jimmy Garvin washing the fucking horse at Kevin Von Erichs and all that stuff. The boys came up with that, and they had the ability to get the cameras to come and shoot it because 39 loved the program, and the production company was doing the syndication. And so they, none of that shit was Ken Mantell. And Gary Hart kicked off the Freebirds and Von Erichs angle and feud. And then Ken Mantell came in and capitalized on it.
It was David Von Erich's ranch, not Kevin's.
The point is, Von Erich's ranch, washing the horse, whatever the fuck, the guys would come up with that stuff and pitch it, and they'd go out and shoot it. But we were not at a point there. We weren't in the clique, and we weren't pitching shit because we were trying to just have a angle with the Fantastics and hopefully get to the Von Erichs. But during that time, point is relates to this question, they didn't know anything about Mama Cornette. I just said I did my interviews. And as a matter of fact, we would get finishes of like, well, just catch him with a small package. And we'd dress that shit up. And the promos, they'd say, just talk about your matches coming up. And I would do all the material. The only time that they ever even told me what to talk about on those shows was when I had to explain some of that weird booking, like the goddamn, Little John in our corner at Texas Stadium for the 2-ring, 4 guys in the ring at the same time, 2 referee fucking no DQ match. Okay, I'll get that out. Otherwise, we made up all shit. So Mama didn't appear there. But here we're building to this. We come to work for Crockett and Dusty was excited. And Dusty loved the fucking gimmick too. And Dusty said, talk about Mama all you want. And that's why there was always Mama Cornette this and Mama Cornette that. Dusty loved it. And I remember finally in early 86, we had just got Big Bubba Rogers kicked off, my bodyguard from Louisville that Mama sent down to protect me from these evil wrestlers. And we're in the office one day at Crockett's office on Briar Bend. And it's a Wednesday because we're doing interviews, but Dusty's in his corner office, right? And as I'm walking around the hall on the way to the bathroom from where we did promos, Dusty says, come here, baby. And Bubba was already in there. He's talking to Bubba about some shit. And he says, you know what we're going to do? We're going to drive the Nemo truck to Louisville, baby. The Nemo truck was the TV truck that Crockett had actually bought in the early 80s. That's where they started doing the TV tapings from the local high school and college gyms and in rec centers and et cetera, and making it bigger than a studio. National Electronics Mobile Operation, Nemo. We're going to drive the Nemo truck to Louisville, baby. Big Bubba Rogers going to be standing there, going to be on the veranda with Mama Cornette. Big Bubba going to be pouring the lemonade pitcher, and Mama Cornette going to be there telling her, Jimmy, I just hope you don't get hurt. Just don't let them hurt you, Big Bubba. Big Bubba going to take care of it. And I'm thinking to myself, this was when Dusty started. It was right before the first, Great American Bash tour in 86, all the stadiums, and Dusty started thinking about doing major motion pictures and sitcoms, and I'm thinking, I know he means this now, and he's having a great time telling Bubba about all these ideas. But my mama ain't got a veranda at the house for real, and where are they going? And then he just assumed that Mama Cornette went, and he said, and Mama Cornette, she'd be sitting there with all the jewels on and everything. My mom did not have any ostentatious jewelry. I'm sure we could have found some, but it was just, that was the pitch that he made. They're going to drive the Nemo truck to Louisville and have Big Bubba on the veranda with Mama Cornette. She's worried about me. Big Bubba going to be pouring the lemonade.
Would she have done it? Would she have done it?
No, because I wouldn't have asked her to do it, because I would have said, no, my mother does not. Once again, it was Dusty having these great ideas, and a lot of Dusty's ideas were great. And some of them were have the Great American Bash at the Liberty Bowl on the 4th of July in Memphis. But it wasn't going to come about because remember, we were going to make major motion pictures and sitcoms, and the major motion pictures didn't come up as a sitcom, Learning the Ropes. I don't know if that was a situation comedy or a comedy. It was in a bad situation. But anyway, no, she would have done it if I asked her to do it, but I wouldn't have wanted her to do it. And if we sat down and actually talked about it, then Dusty would have realized also, it makes more sense if Mama Cornette is never seen and only thought, because it can't be as good. At that point, it could never be as good in any real life, no matter who was doing it, Meryl Streep, as what the people had built up in their mind. And everybody always thought she was like a matronly, gray-haired, plump old woman. And the heaviest my mom ever got in her life was 132 pounds. She got her genes, and I got some of the other side of the family's genes. But anyway, and then
I can't see Bubba pouring the lemonade.
And Big Bubba pouring the lemonade, and she wearing all the jewelry, baby. And then in Smoky Mountain, we just we went with what had been going on, where she was seen and not heard. And, every once in a while that led to things like the Rock and Roll Express spoiled my debut of my unveiling of the portrait of her by fucking sneaking under it and replacing it with a dog with its hair in curlers that I then unveiled and went ape shit over. But nobody knew what Mama Cornette looked like. So it was better that way. And then after Smoky Mountain, Vince had never seen or heard of Mama Cornette. And besides that, I'm 35 years old at that point almost, so the mama's boy thing was somewhat downplayed in the WWF.
You could have gone the other way and said, I have inherited a large sum of money. Did anyone ever come up to her in town? Did anyone ever say anything to her, either if they knew her or if they just recognized the name? Like, are you related to Jim Cornette?
Well, nobody ever said anything bad to her. Every once in a while, somebody would recognize the name and she'd tell me about it. Oh, I was at the bank and said, oh, well, my son watches that on television, but never any bad interactions. And every once in a while, when she would go down in years later, when she'd go down to the gardens and just visit Teeny and not, they might see her, sitting back in the section for that the boys would sit in, not in the public area or whatever, and a bunch of people would wave. And when I brought her down to The Last Dance or some of the OVW shows at the gardens, people would remember, and they'd come up and just love seeing her again and catching up and everything. She never had any heat except from the people that never met her.
How often did she watch you on TV?
More often than she admitted, I think, because after she passed away, we're clean out at the house. I found it because I'd given her a bunch of VCRs, right, over the years, betas and VHSs. Every time I'd upgrade, I'd send her something or whatever. And she was taping the shows. She taped the wrestling programs that I was on and football. And that's pretty much what she would watch. So more than I would have thought. I think she was keeping an eye on me.
Did Mama Cornette watch a lot of football?
Oh, she was the biggest football fan in the world. She'd go ape shit over football. Every Sunday, she's down there in front of the TV watching football. And then Monday nights when that became a thing. Loved football. I never got football at all. She loved football.
Wow. I did not expect that. I have to be honest. You're lucky you got Big Bubba, not Otis Sistrunk.
And as a matter of fact, she's the one that got me started watching roller derby too, because she loved roller derby and wrestling when she first moved to Louisville and got a television. They didn't have indoor plumbing until she was 18 and moved to Louisville.
So you've never really talked about the idea that she loved wrestling. Who did she enjoy? Who was her favorite?
Well, but see, that's the thing. She loved television. Like I said, she graduated high school in 1951. She's 18. She moves to Louisville, gets a job at the Chamber of Commerce, right, as a secretary. That's the first time she'd had television. They had electricity. I don't think they had TV, and where they lived at that point in time, I don't think they were near enough to a TV signal. So she got a chance to watch all the classic early 50s television programming, right? When TV is a new thing. And she watched roller derby because she liked to roller skate when she was a kid. And she watched wrestling because everybody watched wrestling that had a television. And that's how she never really mentioned anybody specific other than the concept that she watched wrestling. Because it's like that's, one of the three sports that was on TV at the time. But that's the way she sold it to me that made it sound interesting to me when she was up late that night with a cold and had been switching around when you had to change the channel yourself. And she goes from channel 3 in Louisville when it went off the air at night. She's trying to go to channel 11 and she passes 4 and there's the wrestling show, Bruiser show from Indianapolis coming through snowy. When 3 was off the air, you could get 4 even without my fucking later antenna apparatus I set up. So she tells me the next day, well, Jimmy, I saw a wrestling show last night that looked just like the ones I used to watch when I first moved to Louisville, which it was 20 years since then, right? But that's what Bruiser's show looked like. A fucking one camera in a dark arena with Dick the Bruiser. It could have been 1952, right?
Well, what would she have been watching in 52? Would it have been Kohler's TV or was it something else in Louisville?
Chicago wrestling.
So she would have seen the Bruiser if she was watching a few years later.
Yes, and fucking Wilbur Snyder and fucking, it's all the same people, right? So I said, well, that sounds, I'd never had heard of the concept of professional wrestling, but just because it was something that looked like something she used to watch a long time ago. I mean, I already liked old radio and old comic books. I'll watch the old wrestling. And then I saw Bruiser and Bobby Heenan, and there you go. And then I found out it was on in Louisville. She didn't know there was wrestling on in Louisville. Jared had just opened the town back up, a year or two before that. So anyway, that's Mama Cornette. If it hadn't been for her, I wouldn't have watched the shit to begin with. And then later on, she becomes the most famous unseen wrestling personality of all time.
When you did the big promo turning babyface, well, even though you kind of were already babyface after Paulie attacked you, that was also the promo where you, for the first time ever, said, I told Mama, I'll take care of this myself, stay out of it. Did you always, when you thought about the idea of doing a babyface promo, was that the intention that I have to address The idea that I've been this mama's boy on TV for years, I have to say something.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the whole idea, is to complete the metamorphosis, to put me in the sympathetic position after I'd been busted open, laid out, bleeding. The team had lost the World Tag Team title. Bobby was selling an injury. All hope was lost. The last thing was, God damn it, I got to tell Mama I'm going to do something on my own for once. I've got to bow up to Mama Cornette. And that fucking brought it together. So I just threw that in the fucking interview.
And that got a pop when you said it in the studio.
Yeah. I almost went into dustiness where I said, and Mama Cornette said, please come home, baby. Please come home, daddy. I was going back to the fucking promo where don't let they put you down with a steel-toed boot. You got to go to the hospital, baby. Got to go to the hospital, baby. I would not give him the damn satisfaction. Instead, I said, my mom said, come home. I'll let the lawyers work it out. We'll let, you don't want to be hurt anymore. I said, Mama, you're going to have to get over it because it's about damn time I do something on my own. And people pop, because that was the last thing that I had to do to establish that now it's okay to cheer for me, because I've finally bowed up and told my overbearing mother off, and I'm going to fucking fight somebody on my own. And then that shifted the title of world's biggest pussy manager to fucking Paul Lee, because now he's going to be scared of me and I'm going to be on the offensive. That's psychologically, that's where everybody needs to be in the fan's mind.
Plus, Paulie went the other way. You would call your mama. He would say, I'm going to call my dad. I'll sue you. I'll call my dad.
Oh my God. The rich Jewish lawyer from Scarsdale, where the polo ponies roam free. Oh, but anyway, so that, and yes, and after that, it was all history, as they say. I was the biggest babyface since fucking the guy that planted the flag on Iwo Jima. Until then, I hit fucking Shane Douglas in the back of the head, and then I became an even bigger babyface.
That's still the best moment where the place pops when you turn on the dynamic dudes.
That was the most inadvertently popular heel turn of all time. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you this. If you are in any way hurting, such as if your head hurts because you have to watch this bad wrestling on Wednesday nights, if your back hurts because you're a tag team partner or one of these outlaw mud show guys, you're having to carry your partner around on your back and they're dragging their feet, or if you're just a regular old person, just a civilian that just has muscle soreness and joint pain and all that stuff that age and overuse brings along, you know what I'm talking about. Our friends at Omax CryoFreeze, the CryoFreeze CBD Advanced Joint Defense, the roll-on that's insanely popular. Now they've got the Advanced Joint Defense supplements, hemp-derived CBD, a clinically proven ingredient called NEM. That's not MNM, that's NEM. That relieves joint discomfort and soreness in 7 days or less. It reduces aches and pains from sore muscles, joint overuse, aging. It's a must for muscle recovery. It improves flexibility, long-term joint health. You take one of these capsules per day and just otherwise forget about it, and within a week or so or less, you're going to feel better. And we've talked about, everybody's in love with the roll-on. Everybody's in love with the sport recovery cream. Omax has all kinds of cool products. The Advanced Joint Defense is another of them. And it has I can't say this, the beta-carotenoline. The beta-carotenoline. The beta-carry your fucking mother off. I don't know what it says. Beta-carotenoline is an essential oil. I can say the word oil. It's an anti-inflammatory, a natural anti-inflammatory business. So anyway, daily supplement. It delivers relief from joint pain and stiffness in 7 days or less. You can improve your physical training, your flexibility, your recovery, and have more comfortable sports activity and save money. Because if you go to omaxhealth.com, that's OMAX health.com, and enter the code JCE. You're going to get 20% off everything they got. Not only the cryo freeze, the advanced joint defense, the supplements, the whole 9 yards, anything on the site, 20% off. Omaxhealth.com. Enter code JCE. Do not, under any circumstances, let muscle soreness continue to be an excuse for not living an active lifestyle. Go to omaxhealth.com and feel relief faster. Rub some on your willy, and you will feel relief.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I did meet a young lady in Columbia, South Carolina one night that had the idea that if you put some of that, the tube of cream that they used to give you if you had a toothache, or a gel, if you put that on the male person's member, that it entitled them or enabled them then to just perform at a high level for a long period of time. Well, there's something to be said for that, but if your whole goddamn crotch is numb, you don't really get much benefit out of that, though. It would sort of be like the fucking hot dog eating contest. They eat a lot of the hot dogs, but they don't taste any of them, and they kind of feel sick afterwards. Don't put Oragel on your willy.
I'll write that down.
Put that down in your little black book wherever you keep it.
I got it right here. Don't put Oragel on my willy, okay?
Don't ever do it. Anyway, what are you doing on your programs this fine week?
This week we're putting Ann Basal on our willies on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network.
You motherfucker, I almost did the fucking Sprite take on my computer.
Of course, get information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes. The latest episode of Charting the Territories, which you heard about right here on the Jim Cornette Experience several weeks back, Al Getz and John Boucher, a very different take on wrestling history, a look at analytics, a look at sabermetrics for wrestling in a lot of ways, but a new way of evaluating classic wrestling and great wrestling talk. Check it out today. New episode is up the same day this episode comes out. chartingthepodcast.com, or look for Charting the Territories wherever you find your favorite podcast. Also want to make mention of John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight, Then and Now, where each week John and I review an original episode of Pro Wrestling Spotlight from 30 years ago. We are right now in May of 1990, getting ready for Capital Combat in Washington, D.C., the return of RoboCop.
Oh, boy.
As well as, I believe, the Midnight Express versus Flying Brian and the Z-Man for the U.S. tag titles, with Jim Cornette in a cage above the ring. How did they talk you into that?
No. Remember? The cage wasn't did they hang me in the cage? Because the cage was at ringside.
That's right.
The cage was at ringside because it was the RoboCop cage that RoboCop later on, when they threw Sting, the babyface, in,
that's right.
RoboCop had to come out and save him by pulling the fucking bars apart. So they tell me I can't work the cage. Oh, the bars are gimmick. Don't jerk on them or they'll fucking fall apart. I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm gingerly trying to act like I'm trying to escape that cage without it falling apart.
What's worse, all things considered? RoboCop busting Sting out of the cage, the debut of Elegante on that show, or the whole idea that it's Flair and Luger in a cage, and as we're reviewing these shows, it becomes really obvious that Flair should have dropped the title to Luger. He shouldn't have been so hell-bent on dropping it to Sting, because you hear these callers, everyone wanted Luger to win the belt.
Yeah.
But in a cage with Ole Anderson having the remote control that controls the cage going up and down. And it's also, I believe, the last pay-per-view for the Road Warriors in the NWA teaming up with Norman. That's their goodbye, their swan song. Road Warriors and Norman teaming up. But we're reviewing all this as well as everything happening in the World Wrestling Federation and all over the world of wrestling. Check it out at pwspod.com or John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And don't forget about the Patreon show where you get to hear the entire original broadcast, patreon.com/Arezi, and of course, the 605 Superpodcast, the Mothership! That's what happens, except if you put Oragel on your willy. You won't be hearing any of that noise.
And then...
That's right. Well, we know what time of year it is. It's opening day for the baseball season. Right here at the end of July, we do an annual opening day Star Wars special. Of course, we have to do one again this year, and this time it's a 2-part episode. Hear it right now. Opening Day Star Wars at 605pod.com are available wherever it is that you find your favorite podcast, as well as Extra Innings. Again, 605pod.com are available wherever you find your favorite podcast. The holiday Star Wars shows are where we take many of the popular guests and co-hosts, and we get them all together for wide-ranging discussions. We talk a lot of baseball on these shows, but also a lot of really deep wrestling talk. Kevin Sullivan, if you ever wanted to hear the Boston Battler talk baseball, this is your chance. 605pod.com are available wherever it is that you find your favorite podcasts. The Mothership!
Oh, God damn it. All right, but before we start talking about these programs that we witnessed, real quick for the listeners out there in the Cult of Cornette that have enjoyed some of the drive-through programs that we've done over the last few weeks, we watched the Midnight Express versus the Fantastics. We watched the Midnight Express versus the Southern Boys. We watched Shawn Michaels versus Vader, and we commented on them from an insider perspective since I was involved in those. As we went and synced it up, stuff that's on the network. The reason we started doing this, we had done this a long time ago, just as a kind of a rib or a goof or just a comedy segment on the 605, where we did various stupid things happening, crummy matches, Mighty Joe Thunder,
Diaz,
PBS, whoever the fuck he was, falling on his head. And we would watch him and laugh at him and sort of like do the Mystery Science Theater 3000 thing. That's as old as the hills. But then we started with these good matches here a while back because the modern stuff is so shitty. And so much of our audience are wrestling fans and are especially offended at what it's turned into. And Mike Mooneyham from the Charleston Post-Courier, I think he tweeted, "What has wrestling become?" after the eye for an eye thing. And he's been following it for 50 years. So we started watching some good matches as like a palate cleanser, as I referred to it. And people have really liked it because they like going back, and if they've seen the matches before, they get new insight because they see things to watch or look for. They understand the context of where it was happening. If they haven't seen the matches, they're like, holy shit, yeah, this stuff actually did used to look halfway fucking good. So I said at the top of the program, I don't know about new programs that we might change around and watch and review to, at least get our fill of this modern stuff or make mockery of this modern stuff. But what some people don't flood Brian Last with emails, and I've already got more than I read anyway, but just on Twitter or whatever, we'll try to keep one eye on it. What type of classic matches that are readily available either on YouTube or on the network that most people have, that would you like to do like us to do one of these where we watch it and either critique it or explain it while it's happening in real time? I've been doing that for 20 years or more with the wrestling school seminars that we would do, whether in OVW when we do a postmortem and go over the TV show so that everybody could see, and you can point at things and you can say to a guy, look, you did this. If you'd have done this, it could have been so much better. It would have looked so much better. Or why did you do that? Or you rushed it. And if they see what's going on, then they see these things. So that's why people find them informative. But anyway, what classic stuff that's available that you guys could access do you want us to watch? And it can be something that I've obviously been personally involved in. I may have more insight. Or it can just be something we might watch as a fan. I've been thinking about, I'd love to take another look because so much of this stuff, Brian, I haven't seen all the way through in years and years. And now watching it with being used to whatever this is these days, Boy, a lot of guys that we used to blister back then look a whole lot better now. But I've been thinking about the Flair Funk I Quit match. Haven't seen that thing all the way through in ages. But, anything. Anyway, we're trying to turn what we used to do as a silly segment on your show into something actually where people get a chance to actually see serious wrestling, since it's not being produced in large part these days.
We also did some serious ones. Remember, I got handheld footage of Dusty and Murdoch winning the World Tag Titles in Detroit against Ben Stomper, or it's Ben Justice and the Stomper, excuse me.
Or Ben Stomper and the Justice.
Yes. Yeah. But we did that one.
That's true. That was cool to watch. We're going to be doing more of these, and then we'll put them up on Patreon so people can keep track of them. And it's the College of Wrestling Knowledge, right?
And we'll also have some on the drive-through.
Well, yeah, no, we're having them on the drive-through, and then we're going to later place them on Patreon. And sometimes you can sync them up if it's public domain footage.
That's right.
So we're trying to educate the folks on wrestling. Should we go ahead and educate some folks on what wrestling shouldn't have done this past Wednesday? I shouldn't say that. There was some good stuff. It was better than last week. Was fucking bloody awful. Both shows, except for just a couple of highlights, had the stench of grisly death on both of them. This week,
I want to make one recommendation, a match I've never heard you. I'd love to hear you do commentary over, because I would like to know what your thoughts are.
Okay.
One of the underrated matches, a match that you probably don't rate high if I had to guess, but I love the match. WarGames 1989, Midnight Express, and Dr. Death and the Road Warriors versus the Freebirds and the Samoan SWAT team.
Oh, God.
I always liked that match. And like I said, I knew how were you going to react. I knew.
Hated it. The original WarGames, I've said this before, and then we'll move on, but the original WarGames was a masterpiece because it was a tremendous gimmick that took the steel cage up a notch, up a level, but it was called for because you had the Four Horsemen and their manager, and you had Dusty Rhodes leading the babyface contingent that were all friends and compadres, and it was an angle that everybody had a personal issue, and everybody on each side fit together as partners. After that, you had, much like after the first David Von Erich Memorial, there was a match that needed a stadium. Then you had a stadium that needed a match. Now, after the initial WarGames with Dusty and his superheroes against the Horsemen, you had a fucking stipulation that needed participants rather than the participants that needed the stipulation. So it was odd teams, odd pairings. It wasn't our style of match at all. The other team was not very experienced in that fucking environment either, and it was a lot of action, but it wasn't any of most of those people in that match. It didn't present them to their strengths. It was a gimmick match that was a big drawing match to put on a pay-per-view right underneath the big world title match. And that was the 10 biggest stars that they had on the roster to put in it. So they besides the world title match, they took the 10 biggest names they had on the roster and stuck them in a 10-man cage match, regardless of whether it really fucking was the best thing to do with everybody's angles.
Well, like I said, I really liked that match. There was a lot of heat at that moment because the Road Warriors, the Marietta Massacre, and Terry Gordy still with the Freebirds, so that's a positive.
Yeah, that was a positive. As long as Gordy was around, you knew you'd get something out of the Freebirds. When he was in Japan, it was fucking brutal. But we could do that match. We could do a variety of matches. Give us your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen out there, and we will continue to do more of these as palate cleansers for the modern wrestling that you have to endure.
Well, I think now it's time to get to these Wednesday night reviews you've threatened everyone with. Which show did you start with this week?
That I've held over everyone's head like the sword of Damocles. I started this week with NXT. I'll do it that way because they're not going to insult me and put me in a real bad mood, like AEW is often want to do, right? So I'll do that one, and I'll have the energy and the inclination to live another day in another show in this kind of. It's about all these shows last about a day. Have you noticed? They just seem to go on and on.
It sure does seem like it.
Anyway, NXT on July 22nd of the year 2020, the year of the pandemic, opened with Professor Keith Lee, PhD. That is the title I've now bestowed on him, giving the most polite, articulate, erudite, friendly wrestling promo of all time, and graciously, and with the utmost etiquette, relinquishing the North American Championship that he just won in that double title match, 2 weeks ago, so that everyone else can have their opportunity like he once had his opportunity. And I think when he handed the belt over, I think he even had his pinky out. Was that the most polite, scripted, low-key, low-energy handing over of a championship that you've ever seen in your life?
Well, yes, but he's established that he is a somewhat low-key speaker. Very nice office. I assume maybe it's his.
I don't know. What the fuck? They just have him beat Adam Cole, this dominant champion, to unify these two, or not even unify, but just hold these two titles. And they can't, now that they've got to that point, it's like climbing the mountain just to see, well, we got up here, ain't nothing to write home about. Let's go back down. They've got the belt on, both belts on this guy. They could do something with it. Besides, I'll just hand it over now so they can have a tournament. And then William Regal announces they're going to have, if I'm doing my math right, 5 weeks of 3-way triple threat matches that will lead up to 5 people having a ladder match for the title on their big show on August 22nd to determine who the new North American champion is, just to make sure that it's a mess that you can't follow. And they have put the hat on the hat. 5 3-way matches to determine 5 guys to have a ladder match to win the championship that this guy has just vacated. What the...
I knew how you were going to react as soon as I heard we're going to have a series of 3-way matches.
Oh, yeah, 5 weeks of that. Well, and it's my fault. I blame myself. I shouldn't have had the goddamn thing, and I shouldn't have answered the fucking phone when JR called me at time and said, hey, what's the rules on that triple threat match you had? But I ran Smoky Mountain Wrestling for 4 years, and we had one singles triple threat angle rivalry match, series of matches or whatever around the horn in each town, and one in the tag team category. Tracy Smothers, Dirty White Boy, and goddamn Primetime Brian Lee for singles, and Heavenly Bodies Rock and Roll Express Stud Stable for tags in 4 years. And each town only got one triple threat tag match, one triple threat single match. And they have every fucking, not just now every week for the next 5 weeks, but just it's constant 3-way, 4-way, 5-way, blah, blah, blah. So I blame myself. But in hindsight, although it worked brilliantly the first time I did it, it's the worst idea I ever fucking had, because now I got to watch them constantly. Anyway, we'll get to the first one here in a second. Dexter Lumis wrestled Killian Dane. I was hoping for Dexter Lumis versus Johnny Gargano for the Monotone Face Championship. But Killian Dane is full grown and looks believable. He's different. He's a hairy fucking big burly guy. Love that. I like Sam Shaw, who's the guy underneath Dexter Lumis. I've seen him before in different incarnations. He's in shape. He's an athlete. He looks good. He can do things. But I hate this gimmick. And now he's sliding and slithering around and avoiding shit and acting creepy. But he was doing that and flipping over stuff and sliding around shit then he just backed up away from Killian Dane and then turned around and walked right back into the fucking guy giving him a crossbody on the floor. If you can't see that guy coming at you. and they fought on the floor because nobody uses the ring, and they went to the break. I was about to say, at least I would know in this match who the babyface and who the heel was, but when they came back from the break, Killian Dane was beating up Dexter Lumis. So who's the fucking heel? Dexter Lumis was selling, but then started a comeback with a spine buster, a Thez press, and a bulldog. He's a psychopath serial killer doing babyface fucking including the bulldog, Cowboy Bob Ellis. I'm not trying to knock everybody. Like I said, I like Killian Dane. He's big. He moves well. He lays his shit in. It's just Dexter Lumis distracts me. And he's the cleanest, most well-groomed serial killer ever. His hair don't come out of place. There's not a spot on his outfit. He doesn't have any facials, but he's using World of Sport style Matt Slither escapes. I don't know what the fuck. Anyway, after fucking Dexter Lumis's babyface comeback, then Killian Dane just came right back and hit 4 or 5 big moves in a row, all that looked good and got a 2 count. And then suddenly, within seconds, Dexter Lumis was fresh as a daisy and did a bunch of shit, and then a big senton off the top rope, and then choked Killian Dane out. So I guess Dexter Lumis was the babyface. I don't know what this match was about. I mean, there was nothing insulting or phony or obnoxiously silly about it, like the guys on the other channel, but they don't put their people in the right places so you understand whether you're a long-time viewer or a first-time viewer, so you understand, does anybody know who to cheer for in modern wrestling, or is it just that since everybody cheers for everybody because they know it's all hoo-ha, nobody tries to direct their fucking emotions?
Yes.
I'm glad you cleared that up. Did you have any comments about this match?
I had a similar thought to you watching. I'm like, who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? The other thing is, Lumis has a look, but I can't take him seriously once he finally gets in the ring and he starts doing the crab boy thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks so ridiculous. I can't take it seriously. I just can't.
He distracts me. I wrote, Dexter Lumis just distracts me. Anyway, then they go backstage and Roderick Strong's doing an interview with some blonde asking a scripted question with no feeling. And although that could be, and I mean, sometimes it's a brunette, but that could be said all the time. Here's another one of my problems with these television programs. They never ID the interviewers. They don't pitch to the interviews. I'm sorry, I've done a lot of play-by-play. I've done a lot of color, but I've done a lot of play-by-play. And the play-by-play man is your traffic cop. He directs you. Where did you come from? Where are you going to? I always made sure when I did a program or when I produced a program, I would make sure my announcers knew when we come out of the break, I want to make sure they reference welcome back, what the program is or what we're about to see, or some type of grounding of the fans. We're back on Ohio Valley Wrestling. It's time now for our Southern Tag Team Championship match or whatever. We're back on Ohio Valley Wrestling. Still to come is our such and such match. But right now we're going to go to this clip of last week, or we're going to go to these comments from so-and-so earlier today. And then if the talent is speaking on their own, that's fine. But if you've pitched to comments the first time that you see the backstage interviewer on a television program, he should be identified. Even if you watch the show every week and you know it's Sam, there's somebody out there that's just seeing this show for the first time. They don't know who Sam is. So all it takes is the play-by-play guy to pitch, let's go to Brian Last backstage with Chris Jericho. Or just let's go to these comments from earlier today with Chris Jericho. And then the announcer says, hi, it's Brian Last here in the locker room with Chris Jericho. And Chris, you got a big match. Or even a fucking lower third graphic. Brian Last with Chris Jericho. Identify your announcers. Every once in a while, one of them will mention the girl's first name. The fuck? Anyway, Roddy starts talking. Roddy has more personality now than he ever had in Ring of Honor. It finally came on. It bloomed. It just took a while. Bronson Reed comes in and confronts Roddy, and Gargano comes in and tries to have a personality. But this is going to be the first three-way qualifying match, correct? Gargano, Strong, and Bronson Reed.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens. The next match, this was the worst of NXT. These shows were like Charles Dickens novels. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Ever Rise, who's an independent team, apparently, I think they said from Montreal, which was a better-looking version of Best Friends with better hair and more expensive gear, basically. Did you see that with them? They weren't really physically great, but they were better than Best Friends, or at least Taylor. And the hair was a little better, and the gear was more expensive, but, you know, and you could tell they were working their ass off because they wanted to get a spot. But their opponents were Breezango. What is it? It's Fan Dancer and Tyler Breeze.
Fandango,
Fan Dancer, whatever. You say tomato, I say I wish I hadn't seen this match. They did the Mountie entrance dancing because they're male dancers, but they did the Mountie music and entrance dressed as Mounties with a video screen of a fucking moose. I almost fast forwarded just for the entrance because I immediately don't like these people. And did you notice Tyler Breeze looks like a smaller now, because he's jacked now, but a smaller version of Mac from Almost Sunny? Facially, do you see Mac?
I could see that a little bit, yeah.
Okay, go back now and you won't be able to unsee it. The obnoxious male strippers are the baby faces in this. Everrise worked really hard, got heat on Tyler Breeze, even though that the fucking baby faces should have been the heels and the heels should have been the baby faces, because that male stripper gimmick is fucking death. With a male audience, there's no women out there anymore. But they got heat on Tyler Breeze. Fan Dancer made a nice comeback. And then they won with, you know, the double super kicks. It was an okay match. I would have thought that was a good standard match for OVW television when I was booking a wrestling school there. Everrise did their job and put them over well and worked very hard. And Breezango is a horrible gimmick, but the guys in it seemed smooth and know what they're doing. They're all so highly trained, as we mentioned. But it was just a modern tag match with all of the gaga taking precedent over getting anybody over. Your thoughts?
I don't have any thoughts about this one. I just didn't give a shit.
Good, let's move on. Aliyah with Robert Stone versus Shotzi Blackheart. So let me just set the stage here. We've got the world's worst manager in the corner of a preliminary girl against a girl with green hair, wearing a helmet with horns and riding a toy tank to the ring. What do you think I did?
I think I already know the answer. Is a women's match you fast forwarded.
Very good. The finish was Shotzi Blackheart got up on the apron, or went out to the apron to climb the ropes. Stone got up on the apron and for some reason just turned and looked dumbfounded at Shotzi Blackheart, who just kicked him. And he comedically, in the wrong way comedically for a manager, oversold the bump. And then Shotzi came off the top on Aliyah 1, 2, 3. Boom. This guy is playing heel manager without ever having actually known one, been coached by one, been one, or apparently seen one. All he knows is that the heel manager is supposed to be physically ineffectual and a comedy dumb fuck foil. But the problem is when you obviously tell the people that you're doing that on purpose, it don't get over. You have to actually convincingly be a physically ineffectual dumb fuck. So then, to make sure that we don't take anything seriously, Shotzi gets in the toy tank that goes approximately 1.5 miles per hour, and Robert Stone lays there with his leg out so she can run over it. And once it's parked on his leg, here comes Mercedes Martinez, who I think is badass, and just flattened Shotzi Blackheart. So they do unfunny comedy bullshit and then send Mercedes out to try to be serious and get heat. And later on, as we'll find out, they've put Mercedes in this fucking comedy group. So there you go. Do you have any thoughts on this match?
On the match? Not really. I think Aliyah shows some potential.
There was a qualifier there on the match, so I assume you have some thoughts.
I don't think very much of Shotzi. Maybe I'm just not seeing it yet. I don't get the thing with the tank. It's ridiculous. Just if you were going to explain things in the world of kayfabe, how does she get the tank to the arena?
I don't know.
It goes 1 mile per hour, and then all of a sudden it's there, and she rides it out to the ring.
And can you imagine the gas mileage? Has to be rotten.
Here's what I'm going to say that's controversial. I'm not as down on Robert Stone as you are. And
I'm waiting for you to back that up with any kind of facts.
I'm willing to give it a little more time to see what he becomes or what he is. Because I had never heard of him until he started doing this. And in some ways, I'm happy there is a manager at NXT, so maybe I'm grading him on a curve.
Oh, boy. But here's the thing. I'm glad that they're selling food. But if they're the only food they're selling is cow pies, then people get turned off of food.
Now, because you have a propensity for fast forwarding, did you see the angle later in the show with Robert Stone and Mercedes?
Well, yeah, hold on. We'll get to that.
Okay.
But I'm sorry. I'm seeing Keith Richards seeing a fucking high school fucking music class student trying to strum on a fucking dime store guitar here.
Well, again,
that's what I'm seeing.
My opinions on a good manager would certainly be different than the opinions of the greatest manager in wrestling history. So,
well, we're not even talking about what Bobby Heenan's opinions are. We're talking about what mine are. And he wouldn't be fucking thrilled with old fucking Robert Stone either. Anyway, we come next on a Isaiah Swerve Scott package. And I liked this, except for one detail. They played up his music background. He was in a recording studio. He's very well spoken. He has a good smile. He came off as a baby face. It was nicely put together. He talks about how his music and being in the studio helps him be creative, and it gets him away from all these mental stresses and helps him in his wrestling also. He's always wanted to be a performer, etc. What did they not do?
Give you a reason to care about him against somebody?
No. He's in a fucking recording studio. He's talking about the music he makes. They didn't show him sing one fucking note or play one thing. Nothing. There was some, what I assume to be generic music is lightly in the background while they're showing action highlights and you're hearing people talk, but you didn't actually see this guy perform one fucking note, one bar, one lick, one minute bit of any kind of music. Wouldn't if he's in a fucking recording studio, wouldn't you see him doing his thing in a recording studio for 10 seconds?
You would think so. I had to sit through 3 minutes of Tim Horner in a recording studio.
Well, yeah, we went completely the other way. Oh God. So anyway, but I like this guy. But they didn't do the one thing you would have thought they would have done. Anyway. The triple threat qualifier. Roderick Strong versus Bronson Reed versus Johnny Gargano. I've just said, unless it is a long-running issue and you've got a clear babyface and a clear heel and one guy who has issues with both, it doesn't work. And then I don't know if these 3 ways and 4 ways are ever going to work again, because you've seen they put them on every independent show just because they got 4 guys or 3 guys standing around for something to do. And they end up being what this was a mess with everybody doing shit to each other with no sense and no flow. That doesn't mean these guys aren't any good. They started at 100 miles an hour. Within seconds, Roddy and Gargano were doing the ha-ha with each other. Well, why don't you get in? Why don't you get in? Whatever. Roderick Strong is one of the best in-ring performers that they have athletically. Bronson Reed, I'm a huge fan of, and this match got him over with me even more because he's different and he's big and he's young and he's going to be something. Gargano, as we know, is you got what you got. He does everything athletically just fine, and he has absolutely zero personality or facial expression or passion or energy or anything to make you think he's anything other than a fucking kid doing wrestling moves. Roddy's the same size, but he's a whole goddamn nother level, so it gets by with it. Anyway, Roddy and Gargano both healed on fucking Bronson Reed, even though they're fucking enemies. Then they nutshotted Reed so that they could do shit with each other. Then Reed made a big comeback. Reed has facials. Reed lays his shit in. Reed moves his big fat ass around excellent for a fucking big man like that. Roddy versus Bronson Reed would have been fantastic. But even if they're having a match that doesn't make any sense, which happens on NXT, they all worked their asses off and all their shit looked good to great. So you can't fault the performers. They're just put in these three ways are just car wrecks. You can't build anything or make it all make sense because they all at some point cooperate with each other and then turn and try to steal something, and they've just been overdone. That Bronson Reed took that powerbomb bump off the apron to the floor, and that his kids are going to be born dizzy. He was giving it his all. Roddy and Gargano went through some nice reversals and counters back and forth, but then all of a sudden, Reed came out of nowhere with that splash off the top, and holy fuck, and he planted it. Boom on Roddy. 1, 2, 3. I loved seeing Bronson Reed go over. I hate that he stole it, in effect, from something that Gargano had done. I think it should have been a little bit more convincing, but it was a great splash. I like seeing Bronson Reed get elevated. And there was nothing silly about this. I always have to say that about any time anybody tries to be actually serious in their matches. They deserve praise. I think it should have been Reed a little bit stronger, but this was, for a three-way match, I can understand why modern fans like these, and everybody did some good shit. It didn't stink. It's just so, I'm so tired of it because you can't really tell the real story and get one guy to shine in one of these things. You tell me.
I agree. I'm not a big fan of the three-way, but all things considered, I really enjoyed this. Surprised Bronson Reed went over. Glad to see they're doing something with him. We'll see where that goes. I think I like Roddy Strong more now than ever before. There's something that's just clicked with him finally. He exudes some charisma and personality. Maybe he can lend some to Gargano. But and it'll be interesting to see what they do with him now that we presume Adam Cole's going to go to the main roster. What does that mean for the rest of the Undisputed Era? But
where has Fish and O'Reilly been?
I don't know.
Is it a COVID issue?
Again, I don't know. I can't tell you, but I enjoyed this. I actually really enjoyed this. And
say, here's another thing. They've done more for Bronson Reed in just a couple of shows that we've seen him on than anybody has done for any of the debuting heels on the other channel in AEW. It can be done. Anyway, I'm a fan of Bronson Reed. Moving on or anything else?
Moving on.
Timothy Thatcher and Oni Lorcan in a rematch of something that we saw before. They had another nice grappling/wrestling match, and this one, what would Eddie Graham say? It's nice to have on the card. I know now people are going to say, well, they were completely serious and all they did was athletic and a contest, and Cornette's going to knock it. There's always a problem with something. This is the complete opposite of the video game style wrestling match that's so popular these days, in that they're all the way the other direction, all grappling, science, technique with no pro wrestling gaga. So for some modern fans, they're going to see this and go, okay, well, that's what strictly athletic wrestling is, and it's boring. I'd like to see Jack Briscoe versus Danny Hodge or Billy Robinson versus Carl Gotch, because that's like getting to see the Beatles or the Stones in person in their prime. The people who invented this kind of thing, this is what they're fucking doing. But Thatcher and Lorcan, without educating the fans to it and to their style, this is kind of like a cover band doing those things. You're not seeing the heroes, the originators, the huge stars, the guys that were major names that did this style. You're seeing guys doing that style, but they got to be stars first before the people will buy it. The logic of these guys in segment 4 trying to make you believe everything that they're doing on the same show as the girl in the tank, or the same company that just produced a fucking dismembered, sharpied ping pong ball as a fucking eyeball, doesn't help. Modern fans don't buy athletic wrestling because in a lot of cases, it's sold to them like this, where it's two guys that are, and I'm not knocking these guys, either one of them, and Thatcher's very good from what I've seen, but it's two guys that are on the card that do this particular style on a standalone basis in the middle of the show. And the modern fans don't buy it because it's not being sold to them. They're not being educated to it. The announcers tell you what the holds are or their effects, but educating your fans goes beyond that. In a wrestling territory, it means educating them to a particular, not just one style, but a genre of wrestling that certain things can't coexist with. Bill Watts never had a comedy match. Bill Watts didn't often book the midgets even, because that conflicted with what he was trying to present as legitimate sport. Educated in the broad term in wrestling means that the top guys in the territory or the company in the main events that are fighting for the titles that are being used in the money matches at the top of the card have matches like this or do this style in many of their matches, and then may obviously, even a technical guy, if he's in a blood feud, he's going to have a fucking street fight match or whatever. But the main event guys work like this. The main event guys do these things. The main event guys set the standard for what the fans of a different company, promotion, or territory are educated to. And even this type of match, like Eddie Graham said, we've talked about the Tony Charles, Billy Robinson matches. He'd stand there and he'd tell you, well, it's nice to have on the card, but not in the main event because this alone won't draw you money. But two guys who are over as main event stars having a legitimate contest will draw you money. So you put guys on a card like this to make wrestling look good itself and legitimate, and then you find top guys that can do a little bit of this and a lot of the pro wrestling gaga and talk them into their issue, and that's what you draw the money with. Anyway, when fans see main events with teleportation and ping pong ball eyes and or cinematic matches or fights on the roof of the building or in the fucking shitter or the kitchen, the real wrestling fans who have always loved, wanted to see, grown up on, been fans of real pro wrestling, real not meaning non-predetermined, but real meaning the legitimate art form done the legitimate way, those fans see this stuff and they bail out, and you're left with people who want to see the teleportation and the ping pong balls, and they don't like the athletic wrestling because they think it's boring, because the only people that do it anymore are the guys with the short boots and the wool tights in the Timothy Thatcher and Oney Lorcan match where there's no gaga whatsoever. Did I explain that right?
You did, and that, listening to your explanation kind of makes me understand more why I wasn't so crazy about this, because I actually like that style of wrestling. I've really liked everything I've seen with Timothy Thatcher. Oney Lorcan's been all right every time I've seen him, but
there's no meat. There's no oomph to it because it's two guys that they haven't featured as outrageous personalities or world beaters doing a style that they put no other credibility into in any other segments.
Well, it's the style change. Like all of a sudden in the middle of a of a WWF show. Imagine if they, 1990. Imagine if they dropped a lucha match. Just like what?
How about this? How about in one of the classic seasons of Saturday Night Live, suddenly they announced Sir Laurence Olivier to give a dramatic reading of Hamlet for 10 minutes. People are going to be, I don't care how good it is. It's not what people came to see, and they're going to kind of be fucking bubbling, right?
I'll give you a better example. Dropping the Rock and Roll Express versus the Heavenly Bodies into the Survivor Series.
In Boston, right before the midget doinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people are like, what the fuck is this? Are they mad at each other? Yeah, so
I appreciate both guys. And like I said, I'm really high on Timothy Thatcher. I'd like to see them do something with him other than like the feud just evolving around, I can submit you or whatever it is. And I probably would have liked it better if they started the show with this as opposed to going to this. Not that they're like opening match guys, but as opposed to going to this match after we had just seen the 3-way. And before the final match.
There's a lot of following a shooting with a stabbing on these programs because they just, I don't know. But anyway, Thatcher and Lorcan here, they did the angle pewter finish where fucking one guy locked the double wrist lock, but he was on his back and the other guy pinned him, which can happen, obviously, because it did. But we've covered that. Later on, Robert Stone is in the back selling his bad leg, and Mercedes Martinez comes in and tells him off and tells him what his job is, and she'll handle the wrestling. And now I'm unhappy because I had high hopes for Mercedes Martinez, but she's so badass and serious and different, but she's going to be with fucking Ha-Ha Boy. So I don't know what to think.
The way he manages, he would have fit into like Glow.
Yeah, he could have been Boogaloo Brown's spot in the LPWA. Yeah, or Glow would be good. He should be in the phone booth with Dave McClain.
I didn't know this until recently, going through an episode of John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight Then and Now, because I'm not a big LPWA fan. Who did you replace as a commentator? Do you know? Or who was there a few months before you in that position, I guess?
I don't know. I'd never heard of the thing. Joe Pedicino called me one day and said, hey, this guy, Torberg, he's promoting the Ladies Professional Wrestling Association, and we tape television once a month at a casino in Nevada, and he'll fly you and your wife out and pay you well to do the announcing. Okay.
In the spring of 1990, the commentators, because one of them was a guest on the show, was Killer Ken Resnick and Sergeant Slaughter.
Oh, God. I think I saw an old clip and Sarge was there because Torberg was from Minneapolis, and he was using a lot of Vern's old guys, and Wally Carbo was there, and Ray Stevens he brought in as an agent and just hang around with the girls, and that was classic. And so yeah, with me and Pedicino replaced Sergeant Slaughter and Ken Resnick. What a change in tone there was. But yeah, I don't know about this Robert Stone fella. Anyway, next week, apparently it's going to be Finn Balor versus Dexter Lumis versus Timothy Thatcher in the 3-way qualifier. I love Balor. I bet he and Thatcher, Lumis is going to stick out like a fucking spare prick at the wedding in that 3-way. I got to be honest with you. I see 2 fucking future superstars both together in this next match, Karrion Kross and Dominic Dijakovic. And from the entrance, the Karrion Kross entrance, they went all the way with this one. The black and white trend, the spooky and the smoke and the spooky video treatment. This is where WWE shines, and AEW would look like a local fucking showing of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Because they go the extra mile to get this shit right. And the match started with, do you remember how the match started?
I don't.
Well, I do, because I was so pleased that I wrote it in capital letters. A lockup. They didn't just ring the bell and jump into a hockey fight. They fucking locked up to start the wrestling match. Like what Ricky Morton told me, he had gone back to Memphis, and he and Robert in sometime in the 90s, and that's where the Eliminators from Pennsylvania or Jersey or wherever. Remember them?
Massachusetts,
the Eliminators. They had come, and I think that was their first territory. And they're going to work Memphis TV with the Rock and Roll Express. And Ricky sits down with him and says, all right, well, how you want to start out? He said, oh, we're just going to kick y'all in the gut and take over. So why don't we lock up? He said, oh, that's not our gimmick. We don't do that. He said, you don't lock up? He said, how do you start the fucking match? He said, well, we just kick you in the gut and take over. He said, no, you're not. But anyway, nobody locks up. Start the fucking match anymore. They locked up and they had game faces on and they were stiff tie-ups and jockeyed around a little bit. Looked like grown adult men. I said Karrion Kross looked like the fucking bald-headed guy in Key and Peele last week, and he did on the interview, but he's a nice-looking athlete. He's got good size. Dijakovic's a little taller, but Kross looks good. Kross healed first, so we established who the heel was, who the babyface was. They started out slow so they could build it, and they manhandled each other a little bit first. And Killer Kross, he was Killer Kross, wasn't he?
Yeah, that was his name before NXT.
Karrion Kross has the facials that Dexter Lumis should have. He looks evil, and when he's done something to the other guy, he looks happy about it. And they went to the break. They came back. Dijakovic was fighting from underneath while Kross got the heat. And it's hard to get a guy the size of Dijakovic fighting from underneath, get a little sympathy, but they did it well. And then Dijakovic made a comeback and hit one big dive, which is all a guy that size needs, and he did it. Dominic is green. Kross, I think, either looks more experienced or he's just smoother. But he's got great potential. Dijakovic is green in his movements, and everybody's going to say, oh, look at all the stuff he does. I'm not talking about his actual moves. I'm talking about his body language. Sometimes the way he goes in for his strikes, just sometimes the way he feeds in. He's a little green because he's young, but he's big and he's impressive and he's already come a long way. And I think he's going to be like one of these Rick Rude types that really, or a Randy Orton that just really matures into a smooth fucking motherfucker. He's got all the upside in the world. After that big dive, Kross took back over and got vicious on him and was really healing him. And then they have to do the thing. They gotta just go so far. He puts fucking Dijakovic, his head between the steps and the ring structure somehow, right, stuck in the corner there where he was safe, but you could try to buy that he wasn't. And he kicks the fucking steps into his head, which, of course, if a big 5-gallon bag of blood had exploded, that might look good. But it didn't really, no, and you can't sell that. You can't take a bump off of it. Then he drags the carcass out and puts Dijakovic in the ring, and now that's where you can tell fake booing from real booing. And the fans that they've planted are booing, but they're fake booing. And it was starting to get distracting because now they've been having this good match. Now they're doing this stupid thing with the head between the stairs and the ring. And the fans fake booing that doesn't sound like real booing. And then Kross mounted him and hit a bunch of weird forearms. Did you see that where it's like he's it's almost like he's trying to portray, well, I'm not working now, I'm really hitting him. But the really hitting him forearms looked more worky than the working forearms. And if you mounted somebody, why wouldn't you just punch him in the face? Well, maybe the reason is he doesn't throw a real good punch. Well, you ought to learn, because I don't see why you'd mount somebody and throw forearms to their chest when you've just tried to cave their head in with metal ring stairs. But he hits the weird forearms. Keith Lee comes out very calmly, as you would imagine. Dijakovic won't quit. And they're telling the story that Kross is going to beat the fuck out of Dijakovic and right in front of Lee and make him watch because he knows they have respect, but Dijakovic ain't going to quit, but he's unable to stop this ass whipping. Do you know what was wrong with this, Brian?
No.
Have you ever seen a guy who's had his head caved in by heavy metal stairs and then mounted by a professional fighter and repeatedly had blows rained down on him, who doesn't want to quit, who was so incredibly lucid and clear-eyed and clear-voiced in explaining to fucking Keith Lee why it was on him and he wasn't going to quit, but it wasn't Keith Lee's fault. It's like he rolled over and he's looking at Keith, and they're having this conversation, and Cross is just letting him. If Dijakovic was coherent enough, spry enough, lucid enough to have the conversation he had with Keith Lee while his opponent was not molesting him in the least, he could have at least rolled out of the fucking ring and avoided the further ass whipping. Or he could have turned over and looked at his opponent and said, I'm going to get up and fight you back. Because it wasn't like he was covered in blood. Wasn't like there was blood loss weakness. It wasn't like that you could tell he didn't know where he was at. Wasn't like he was pantomiming, no, I don't want to give up, while blows were rained down on him. He rolled over and looked at Keith Lee, and they had a nice moment where they're having a conversation. Now that I've said that, did you see that?
Yeah.
So that killed the whole goddamn thing. I wrote, oh, for fuck's sake. And then Cross gets on him, puts a weird sleeper grip on him and puts him out. So the heel put the babyface out with a fucking sleeper in front of his friend, the professor, after he'd had his head caved in by stairs, but that didn't finish him. And he was still able to tell Keith Lee to not worry about it. He was going to do this on his own, even though he's basically saying, this guy's going to fix to pound my head in, but I don't want you to do anything about it. And I'm going to take my ass whipping. Instead of, as I said, just rolling out of the ring and maybe getting his fucking wind back. Good match, rotten finish.
I guess that's all you can really say. Good match. I really like Karrion Kross, seeing him in the ring. I guess there's a way to do that finish where we've established that there's a mutual respect between Keith Lee and Dijakovic, where Keith Lee wants to save him, and he's torturing the guy he respects in front of him. But I wasn't. After the thing with his head in the ring steps, it kind of took me out of it a little bit.
Well, and because it all had to be so slowed down and there was no big payoff to it and blah, blah, blah. How about this? Just off the top of my ass. Fucking Dijakovic blows a big comeback and does all of his stuff. Boom, boom, boom. But he slips on a banana peel and crashes and burns, and Karrion Kross hits him with a big goddamn move. Or maybe even fucking takes him out on the floor and fucking DDTs him or something on the steps if they want to fucking give him brain damage, and throws him back in the ring and fucking gets on top of him and starts goddamn hammering him, and then let Keith Lee come out like he did and let the referee step in and pull Karrion Kross off like, I'm going to stop it. And as he turns to tell the fucking timekeeper he's going to ring the bell, have fucking Keith Lee go, no, wait a minute. Come on, Dijakovic. He's cheering for him. And Dijakovic comes up to a knee, then throws a goddamn shot to the midsection, and Kross shuts him right back down and puts him in the corner and starts hammering him, punches, boom, boom, boom. The referee steps in again and says, I'm going to stop it. And this time Dijakovic slumps to his knees, but he crawls and he pulls on the pant leg of the referee, and he's just shaking his head. No, don't stop it. He can't get to his feet. He can't put a sentence together. He's just shaking his head no. And that's when Karrion Kross looks at fucking Keith Lee and says, it's on your head, motherfucker. And he clamps the goddamn grip on, and you can see fucking Karrion Kross fucking gripping with those goddamn facials while Dijakovic is out of it, and all he does is reach out just weakly to Keith Lee, trying to say, it's not your fault, and he fucking passes out, and then Keith Lee comes in and breaks the grip. Or they could dick around like they did doing whatever the fuck they were doing.
Well, we've now established Karrion Kross, the next guy to challenge Keith Lee. I'm excited about that match.
And that should be good. Yeah. And Kross has some oomph. And I can't wait to see Scarlett slap the piss out of Keith Lee and see if we can make him mad.
I just want to see more Scarlett.
All right, you pervert.
Hey.
Anyway, and that was the show. So there was some good there. Once again, there's never anything embarrassing on NXT. It's just some rotten blasé stuff. But meanwhile, over at Comedy Central, they had the other program. And the way they started this off, AEW, Brian, came that close. You can't see, but I'm holding my thumb and my index finger very, very close together. That close to almost getting the coveted Jim Cornette grade of 100, A+, perfect segment. And they fucked it up.
I'm going to guess the thumbtacks are what fucked it up for you, because I know that's what fucked it up for me. We'll talk about it in a second, but beyond that, I loved this opening segment. This was the best thing Cody's done in a very long time, and Eddie Kingston is someone who I've been high on. I remember when you first got to Ring of Honor, I told you, this guy's great. He throws a great punch. I wonder if he could talk.
Yeah, and remember once I heard him talk, we put him in the angle with Steen and gave him a pay-per-view match, or an internet pay-per-view match. Same. I don't know if that's one that was even on the air or not. He was with Chikara, just because Kingston, he lives in New York, New Jersey, and so he was with Chikara, and it stood out like a screen door on a submarine. A great old-fashioned, he made a beautiful territory wrestler, either babyface, gimmick babyface, or heel. But a guy like this in the middle of all that Chikara bullshit, he was the one that we could fucking do something with. And again, in the NWA, he cuts promos and he sounds like he looks, and he looks like he should look and sound if he was who he really purports himself to be. And the story is easy to tell. Jim Ross did an excellent job in this match telling the story. But he had to sell his boots pay his mortgage. He's 18 years. This may be his last chance. He's going to give it all he's got. JR is great at stuff like that. Kingston, like, he's a New York version of the Dream Machine. Like when Dream come out that time on Memphis TV and say, you know who I am. I hang out in places where people get cut and shot. And that was true. And with Kingston, the whole fucking street guy thing. And he would have been a perfect territory wrestler, and he looks like shit physically, and it works because he looks like a big grown guy that has bar fights, but he's got pale arms and a big belly, and it works. And he talks as soon as they went straight into the ring introductions. Cody's already in the ring, and they had teased they're going to have a top independent star. I didn't know who it was, but then when Kingston walks out, from the start, he had the microphone, he had a mean voice, he had a real sound to him. He took over the room, he took over the interview and the microphone. He was like, shut up, this is my time now. He wasn't fucking out there shitting himself or, like some of these guys talking about, oh, it's been my dream to be here. Like all the guys in the WWE, it's been my childhood dream to be here and entertain you people. No, Eddie Kingston said, I came here to kick somebody's ass and make some fucking money. That was perfect. And then he asked for no DQ. And then they do a jump start and go right to the floor. And here is where it worked. This is where that works. Start 100 miles an hour, brawl to the floor. If every match didn't do it, imagine when one where it's actually necessary and called for and works like this. Imagine how much better it would have been when you didn't see it all the time. Cody did a dive that actually worked because it looked like he was mad and diving off on the guy, and a big fucking punch. That worked. You could tell there was a clear babyface and heel in this. Clear babyface and heel. Cody gets a big comeback, and then as he takes his weight belt off, like dropping Lawler's strap in Memphis, Kingston gets the belt and whips him with it. And they're back and forth, and what a fight. Then they slow it down in the middle, just like every classic match, with a chin lock so Cody can fight from underneath, so they can settle him down a little bit, so that then they can pick it back up again. Kingston's heeling on him, kept on top of him. Cody did everything that he should have to get Eddie Kingston over as a new talent, a new force, and Kingston carried the ball. And then here comes the bag of thumbtacks. I will explain. Of all the stupid things that have become commonplace in wrestling over the last 20 or 25 years, I think the thumbtacks are the absolute stupidest. It spoiled it. It's freak show bullshit. It took the attention off Eddie Kingston trying to win a championship and possibly win a contract with a sports organization. And they've had this nice fight where all their shit was good and snug and it made sense. And then the thumbtacks. You can't win a match with thumbtacks. You cannot beat anyone with thumbtacks. You can only throw them in the thumbtacks and then they roll around like these garbage deathmatch freak show wrestlers for appealing to the lowest common denominator of a bunch of guys who are going to say, oh, ow, that really hurts, because it does really hurt. You can't work it. It's going to hurt, but it cannot incapacitate anyone to where they would lose a fight or a match or a contest. It's just freak show, outlaw, stupid shit to get the fucking crowd that likes to watch people fall off skateboards to go, ooh. It's always been stupid. It was stupid when Mick Foley did it. It's stupid now. Great people can do stupid things. And this has always been stupid. And it just looks so cheap and low rent. So then, of course, Eddie Kingston powerbombs Cody into the tacks. He powerbombs him into the tacks and fucking goes do something else. And Cody gets up and goes nuts and just fucking bowls over Eddie Kingston, boom, and gets the figure 4 and boom, tap. 1, 2, not 1, 2, 3, but tap. Done. I was like, what the fuck? If they'd have done the same match, everything they did, but no tacks, just let Kingston get one good, impressive, close as a cunt hair near fall, and then do something that Cody reverses and goes into a figure 4, and there's your finish, and it would have been so much more effective. It would have been a classic debut for a new talent. This was a great match with the perfect length. They didn't overstay their welcome, but they gave it plenty of time. If they could have just resisted the urge to be so stupid and outlaw and low rent and local, and taken a thumbtacks out and just told their physical story, done the same exact thing, it would have been perfect. I couldn't believe it. They were almost there, Brian.
I'll tell you, I love this segment other than the thumbtacks. I'm not a fan of that. I had a thumbtack go into my knee during a siesta. A fiesta, excuse me, in 7th grade Spanish.
I was about to say,
class.
where are you sleeping?
No, well, this is why I failed Spanish. But during a 7th grade Spanish class, Senora Arias, and it was painful for a second, but it wasn't something that I saw like, oh my God, what if wrestlers started rolling around in this? That would be amazing. I hate the thumbtacks, but I hope they sign Eddie Kingston. Fantastic promo, believable promo when he told Arn Anderson, I swear on my mother's eyes, I'll take your eye out. You believe him? You believe him? I thought he brought out the best in Cody. Cody didn't treat it like, okay, here's another guy I'm going to wrestle. You know, I see some of the criticism for Cody where people compare him to Triple H, where it's basically, I'm taking all the top indie guys and I'm going to beat them on TV. I didn't really see this as that. I saw this as the best of Cody, and it brought out the fire in Cody.
And imagine if the fucking comedy bullshit guys like Sonny Kiss and whoever had not already taken Cody 20 minutes. Imagine this would have had even more impact, which is what we were talking about last week. The reason why new unknown talent gets over by taking a established main event guy to the limit is because it hardly ever happens. But when it happens every week, this was special. It could have been even more special, which is what we're talking about when we say you don't book week to week. You do if you're a mark. If you're a fan that's gotten the opportunity to become a booker, that's what you do. But if you know anything about the business and what you're trying to do, in your mind, you're booking for months down the road because you have to build your business and keep it. You can't go 100 miles an hour forever, always. So you start out when you got a guy like Cody. Nobody comes close to him on TV for the first 6 months or what. And then you have a match like this, and then everybody's going, holy shit, he almost took Cody. That never happens. That's how it gets over. It doesn't get over if you do it every fucking week.
AEW always does something stupid or something unnecessary, so that's baked into the cake. So with that said, I give this segment an A. I thought this was great.
Yeah. If it just not done the thumbtacks. But anyway, but yes, this was, as a matter of fact, if this had been the first segment of the first AEW television program I ever saw, I'd say, holy shit, this shit's as good as fucking Mid-South Wrestling. But unfortunately, they've had a different first impression. Anyway, but trying to follow up a win with another win, one of our favorites is next. Oh, also, Moxley was in the bowels of the building doing a promo being tough. And this would have been a great promo. He's got the inflection and the cadence and the way he says some things. If he in any way looked like a big fucking badass, this would have been a great promo.
He's always on the run. Like,
yeah, he doesn't stay in one place too long.
No, he's in the basement. He's out by a fence. Like, why is he always hiding? Who's he hiding from, Mr. Badass?
Well, I think he's studying for his real estate license. He needs to be in a variety of places. But no, if he looked like Stone Cold Steve Austin, you would buy this. But he looks like he's 5'10" and fucking, nondescript.
I think he's taller than that.
I don't know. Well, okay. Who knows?
They say Jericho's 5'10". He ain't 5'10".
I think, yeah, Chris, I've stood in front of Chris Jericho a bunch of times, and I've always been looking him eye to eye, and I'm 6 feet even. So I don't know what to tell you. But anyway, MJF next with Wardlow in his corner. No hint of dissension, thank goodness. I'm sure they heard our previous program where we say, you fucking idiots, it's not a goddamn bitter divorce if you've only dated 3 times.
They hear everything we say.
Well, I'm sure they do. They probably in their worst nightmares they hear. But anyway, MJF versus Griff Garrison, who is the kid who looks like Jungle Boy except he's bigger.
Now remember when they had that lumberjack match several weeks ago? It was the first time I ever saw this guy. He was next to Jungle Boy. I said, why do they have Jungle Boy next to a guy that looks exactly like Jungle Boy? Same hair.
Because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you?
But it was pointed out here that he looks just like Jungle Boy, so
yes,
it works.
Except he's bigger. So he's bigger than one of the guys they're trying to push. Anyway, MJF, the records work for MJF. The statistics, the record keeping. He's 7-0. He's never been pinned or submitted in AEW. He's the only one that has actually come out well with the amateur armchair bookers they got over here. And the statistics as well. It doesn't expose him or doesn't demean him. He did a great promo, obviously, with the job guy. The job guy held up his part, old Griff. But he just so much personality, the delivery, the way he switches inflection and tone on a dime. Then he gives him the sucker microphone shot. As soon as this started, the MJF takes the energy up on the screen, in the room, whatever. And he healed his ass off. And they went through a break, and he toyed with him through the picture-in-picture. I'm not sure that I would have even given MJF picture-in-picture with a fucking job guy, but he is interesting. But when they come back, he does a mid-match promo on the guy, and he made that work. That's what I'm saying. There's some of these guys that if you do the right thing and it's the right person doing it, you can make this ha-ha bullshit work because it's the way you do it. But then the people who don't understand that see that and just, oh, well, then so-and-so should do that. Remember when so-and-so did that? Well, let's let him do this. And they have the wrong people doing the shit at the wrong time, and it becomes blech. So MJF toys with him on the microphone. Lawler would have been proud. Finally, he made old Griff Garrison say, what was it he made him say? You didn't give up, or you didn't lose, or you're the better man, or whatever the fuck. He made him say something demeaning, and then followed it up with a surprise false finish schoolboy for Griff Garrison that you bought, because it could have been a fucking up. The way that they worked it, you bought it. That would have got a big pop if there'd been people. And then MJF flips out, gets mad, and beats him flat. That was perfect. This was a perfect match to get a fucking heel over decent length, except for the break in the middle, whatever the fuck. It was what it was supposed to be. There's so few matches on AEW television that actually come off and accomplish the purpose they're supposed to accomplish that it stands out here, but this was perfect for what they were trying to do.
We have been pretty vocal about what are they doing with MJF? Why isn't he wrestling? Why isn't he talking? They did both here. Once again, something we have been talking about applied to this show. Got to give this segment.
Oh, come on. I would love to take the credit, but we're not breaking any revolutionary ground. Everything I say, anybody that's been in the wrestling business 10 years even, just 10 years even, would know all these things. Much less for any long period of time. So
back-to-back segments, I give an A.
Well, there you go.
I agree with you, though. I wouldn't have gone through the commercial break. Every match can't go through the commercial break. And yes. I did like him working the mic during the match. You could have shortened it up a little bit. And even if you still had the schoolboy false finish, it would have still worked.
Yeah.
But that's my only critique. But again, it's AEW. They always do something unnecessary, so I can't even judge that. Like I said, two back-to-back great segments. Great feelings for AEW at this point of the show for me.
Love is in the air. Well, it actually doesn't get worse right off the bat, because here's another thing. Tony Schiavone with Britt Baker and Reba. Good old Rebel. This is good silliness. This is good silliness with the heel girl, not the main event babyface or main event heel or somebody, the one of the champions, but the heel girl with the heel girl flunky. And nobody's cooperating with each other that are on different sides or opponents or whatever. So yeah, they're doing a little shtick, a little gaga, but Britt Baker did a great job here. Rebel Reba as the flunky is great. If this was the fun and silliness on the show, it would work because it's called for here. It's not anything that exposes the business necessarily as just as this woman being a prick. And like Tammy's tips when she kicked old Margie down the fucking hill. It's not your main event people being involved in Gaga. It helped Britt Baker. It was entertaining. Tony's the good straight guy there. And if this was all the fucking silly, or most of the silly, then this was the cheetah segment. It works. It's a couple minutes. It's not offensive. You get back to your wrestling. They can do it if they try in the right place, but every segment has to be silly and caca and just over the top and winking. And then here's another thing. They didn't really wink at everybody that were actively being fake here. Britt came off like she really kind of half-ass means this stuff, and Reba comes off as if she's somewhat put upon. I didn't mind this.
Yeah, it was all right. Can't complain too much about it.
Full-throated endorsement from Last Manor. Then Taz did the promo with Brian Cage, and Taz did a decent promo explaining the crummy finish that they had them do. It was not the easiest thing to explain. But it was okay. It wasn't Taz's best promo, but it's still, above what a lot of people do. Then Darby Allin appears. And here's the goddamn it. Darby Allin appears. He's coming down to the ring. Ricky fucking Starks out of nowhere looked like he'd been shot out of one of those circus cannons. Just knocked the fuck out of Darby Allin from behind like he owed him fucking trance. And they didn't show it. They show a slow-mo of all these fucking obviously cooperative moves and dives where everybody's hanging there in midair waiting to catch people. And this looked like he could have goddamn paralyzed Darby Allin with it. Just knocked the fuck out of him at 100 miles an hour, and they didn't slow-mo it. And they demolished Darby Allin, and then Moxley came in to save from Starks and Taz and Cage beating the shit out of Darby Allin with a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. It couldn't just be a baseball bat wielded by the fucking AEW champion. It has to be a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire, like all the garbage deathmatch bullshit wrestlers that apparently this fucking idiot Moxley looks up to and wants to be like. Because he's the violence, all the violence. A barbed wire baseball bat is the stupidest thing in the world. You can't play baseball with it. You can't work with it. It actually would cushion the bat blow and just slice you up. There's no reason for it except that this ECW bullshit, garbage deathmatch morons. I started to say a word that I don't even say there about people's mental acuity.
It's not even ECW. That would be
well now. Well,
it's CZW.
It's this CZW. And the fucking Ian Rotten bullshit and the fucking lowest common denominator people who want to mutilate themselves for no money in front of a bunch of weirdos like the Juggalos and the rest of these fucking people that go to these goddamn deathmatch shows that you wouldn't even want to allow to walk your dog. Freaks and people who are attracted to freaks. A barbed wire wrapped baseball bat. And then normal people that don't watch this goddamn bullshit underground hardcore wrestling that nobody knows exists except for us because it's in our profession and we've had to fucking put up with it. Why would you wrap a baseball bat up in barbed wire? Just hit a motherfucker in the head with a baseball bat. Your problem will be solved. So it's only for the people that want to blade their arms and their stomachs and their scrotums and bleed from every orifice of their body like a bunch of goddamn useless fucking Neanderthal freaks would wrap a bat in barbed wire. I've said enough. Anyway, so they get some heat on a fucking babyface, and then the fucking champion, supposedly the toughest guy in the company, comes in with a baseball bat and it has to be wrapped in barbed wire to make him look like a garbage wrestler too. I'm fucking fed up with this Stone Cold Steve Austin cosplay from this fucking guy.
I think Moxley does a good promo, and he certainly carries off his personality well, and certainly he's, I think, one of the big movers of the ratings more than anyone else because he's a star off the WWE TV.
Yeah, he's been on the real TV show.
But I have not liked anything with him. I have to be honest. I've said it before. His matches do nothing for me. He had that really awful garbage match with Omega, which was the worst Omega match I've ever seen.
Yeah, and imagine what kind of territory that takes in.
It's always...
When you can't have a better match with a guy than an inanimate object did.
It's just, like I said before with AEW, and specifically with Moxley, it's just always unnecessary shit. If Moxley just run in there with his fists, it would have meant more than running in there with the baseball bat.
Yes, of course it would, especially if they backed up from him. Well, that's a badass. But
if he'd ran in there with the belt, it would have meant more than the. It's just, to me, that stuff's stupid. Let me ask you one question though. I was unfamiliar with Ricky Starks until the match he had with Cody several weeks back, which apparently led to him getting signed by AEW. Now, were you around this guy in the NWA? Have you ever seen him before? What can you tell me about him?
Around him in the NWA, we did 2 days of taping. But yes, he can work. He's a good fucking worker. They were using him as a baby face, and he had some kind of weird, what the fuck was it? He was kind of like a sexy male stripper type, but he was a baby face, the Stark man, and he had some fucking suggestive phrase. I don't know what was going on. If he's a heel with that kind of animosity that he showed here and that fire and everything, and he's in a group with Taz and Cage, I think he'll do very well. Of course, they'll probably have him out on a football field with getting a line painted up his crotch here soon, but he had a nice debut.
To your other point, I've been really, really high on Taz's promos.
The stroke. There was something about a stroke. Starks had a stroking cock or something. I don't know. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've been really high on Taz and his promos. I thought he's just done a great job in AEW. He was put in an unfortunate position because he has to explain things. What did you think about the idea that he had to say, Brian Cage wanted to fire me during the last week after last week's match? I mean, they just got together, like a month ago?
Well, yeah, he may have even come up with that on his own, Taz may have, just to explain why that this fucking huge beast would not have turned on a guy that cost him an opportunity. Like, it was a bad finish, and he was trying to explain it to make Brian Cage look less fucking wimpy, and did the best job of that was possible, which was not very good, but nobody else could have done any better. So it's not like it was anything bad on Taz. It was a stupid finish to do and they shouldn't have done it.
All things considered, really enjoying AEW at this point.
Well, we'll fix that. They did. Now, they've warned us. They put out the warning. They're going to have a women's tag team tournament upcoming this summer. They're going to 16 women, 8 teams. You've seen this female roster. Where are they going to find 16 women that can stick their thumb in their ass on the first try? I can't wait to see that.
I'm going to stay away from that one.
Then here was Alex Marvez, the Officer Barbrady of All Elite Wrestling, with the Inner Circle. And ruining a heel $7,000 jacket would be good if you could take the babyface seriously. But all they're doing is talking about Orange fucking Cassidy. And like this is somehow going to miraculously turn into something good. And it ain't. Jericho's promo was great. The lines about the Jurassic Express, etc. But even the heels here, the top heel group, they just can't be serious. They just can't be serious. And they have to, they're not only joking around with each other about the baby faces, but they're obviously doing funny shtick with each other that the fans see as funny shtick. It's just, anyway. So that match is later, but now the Falls Count Anywhere match. Of course, there's no reason to have that. There's actually not even reason to call anything a Falls Count Anywhere match, since none of these guys in this company use the ring more than half the time anyway. They're all out in the fucking audience, the crowd, the fucking arena, the goddamn environs. But in this one, the Young Bucks, Road Warrior Buck and his brother Balding Buck, are going to take on the Fishmonger and the Meat Gentleman in a Falls Count Anywhere match. And I wrote they were having too good a show, so the Bucks have to come in and be the sketch comedy segment, and they're going to do some bad improv at the Comedy Store. And lo and behold, the Bucks were looking around for the Fishmonger and the Meat Gentleman and found them in the kitchen cutting meat.
Right, because naturally they do their vocation when they are on the road.
In the empty kitchen of the empty arena that they're fighting in. See these fucking, especially the Jacksons, these deluded little pricks with their delusions of grandeur. They convinced somebody to let them do this goofy shit that appeals to a very small subset of wrestling fans, and they have considered themselves now to be geniuses, and their shit doesn't stink, so they can basically do anything that they want to do that their little pea brains can come up with that they imagine would be entertaining to people who dislike wrestling, but who like comedy wrestling and comedy bullshit people taking the piss out of wrestling. This is what their fucking mindset. This is who they're appealing to. After Cody has gone out there and put all that work in, after Eddie Kingston has had the match of his life, after MJF has put work in to look like a major league wrestling program, it now degenerates into the Benny Hill highlight show.
The Young Bucks have been responsible for more stupid shit on that show than any other executive vice president or person involved with AEW. From the Dark Order, which is all them.
They've been responsible for more stupid shit than anybody else in the history of wrestling. They are on par with Shitstain's entire catalog of 20 years of work. And they've only been at this for 9 months.
Remember, that's the shit they grew up on.
They've never grown up, though. Neither physically nor mentally.
I don't know. Road Warrior Buck walks around like he's Moxley or something. Big tough guy.
Jesus Christ. So the Young Bucks find the Fishmonger and the Meat Gentleman in the kitchen. And old Butcher and Baker stop before they have the fight to wash their hands in the food preparation sink. Then a bell rang in the kitchen and the double hockey fight started with Rick Knox, the useless referee who looks like a floating corpse. And as I mentioned, all the work that all these other guys have put in, completely down the drain. And so they went out and hurt themselves, actually physically hurt themselves and took risk of injuring themselves seriously to make this look like a fucking major league program so that these two little fucking pricks could come in and jack off and play with their nuts in front of people and ruin everything that those guys that were serious tried to accomplish. And the announcers having to say this match, like this is a match. Two overgrown kids with the power of the pencil because the owner is their friend, and a couple of fairly decent physical specimens that are presented as mid-level fucking wrestling talent have a goddamn 20-minute fight throughout the arena, doing every stupid thing they can think of, nothing plausible, nothing believable, things that no normal human could get up from if they were real, devaluing everything that everybody else does. They went to the concourse out of the kitchen, and Blade was running, I think it was Balding Buck, toward one of the columns, but when he let go of him, Balding Buck just jumped 3 feet up in the air and face first to the column himself. They threw Road Warrior Buck into a 18-wheeler trailer that carries their equipment around. Did you see the Mud Show sign?
Like I said, they listen every week.
A sandwich sign that said Mud Show tonight, but they should have had that sign. They shouldn't have had it in the truck. They should have had it out in front of the building. How did the people know where to fucking come? They did bad outlaw location fighting, as everybody does these days. Road Warrior Buck came off the concession stand with a butt drop onto a cookie sheet onto the butcher who was laying on a table and couldn't even break it. So you got a 275-pound man laying on a table, and you, allegedly full grown. You are full grown, Matt. You're as grown as you're ever going to be, so it's full, but it's still not very impressive. Comes off the concession stand with his ass on top of a cookie sheet on top of that guy and still couldn't break the table. Both the Buck brothers super kicked Blade onto the escalator, so they get the comedy shot of the escalator carrying him up the stairs to go to the break. That's the way they went to a break, not with action or a cliffhanger that you couldn't afford to look away, but a fucking heel comedically knocked out by two small children and riding slowly up an escalator. That'll keep me hanging on for more. They came back from the break, and they were actually in the arena for the first time, taking bumps and doing moves I wrote that destroy everybody else's hard work and credibility. Stuff no one should ever survive being done by middle-aged school children. They pulled out a bunch of tables and chairs. Did you see Blade run full length across the ring, dive over the top rope, do a somersault? One of the Bucks moved, and Blade was supposed to go through a table that was leaned up on the barricade and went right past the table and busted his ass bigger than Christmas on the floor. Yeah. I don't know how he got up from it. Just 2 feet to the right too far. How did he miss the table that was 3 feet wide that didn't move? Then the butcher cross-bodied one of the Bucks through another table immediately. Then I wrote, Mark's playing wrestler doing video game moves and imitating things they've seen on television. Being phony and hurting themselves in the process. Doing ridiculous shit that guys with talent that can actually draw money might do that would work if they hadn't already seen these clowns doing it. I then wrote, no major main event talent would ever have a match with all this garbage in it, so you have top talent allegedly in this thing where they're not even selling shit. When you do have main event guys in an important match for the title, like a Cody or whatever, and they sell shit, it devalues that because the fans have seen this shit not even hurt the fucking young Bucks. So how's it going to hurt grown men? They kill the logic in their universe. Then they spent forever on the stage doing all kinds of stupid shit. Then the young Bucks double splashed Butcher and Baker through tables by coming off the top of the entrance set. And thank God it was over with. This was some of the most unbearable, offensive garbage wrestling I've ever seen, and some of the most self-indulgent horse shit from people who would never even be allowed to be on a television program at this level, much less do the shit they did if they hadn't fucking hypnotized the fucking billionaire Mark owner. So there you had it.
Son of a billionaire.
All right, well, there you go.
For the record, it's not his money.
All right. Anything else to say about that on your end? We've still got a ways to go.
No, I didn't like it. I think the Bucks are the most overrated tag team of all time. I think in general they just suck. Their match layouts suck. Matt Jackson, Road Warrior Buck, acting like he's the tough guy is the most ridiculous thing in wrestling. The fact that we call him Road Warrior Buck, yet he sells less than the Road Warriors.
Yeah, because Animal and Hawk could go down if you hit him with a gimmick.
Yeah, no, this guy pops back up from everything. It's completely ridiculous. The other thing is, just beyond the fact that it's the Bucks, as a match, why was this Falls Count anywhere? Was there anything that set up the stipulation?
Well, all the 8-man shit they did with the shitty booking where they put the fucking guys that might draw some money in their tag team division as rivals together on the same team and then had fucking FTR. They've buried them against goddamn the fucking underneath teams and stolen their fucking car and, hey, dude, where's my car?
Whoever's decision it was that, hey, since we're going to have this match with the Butcher and the Blade, you guys got to start by preparing meat in the kitchen. You're a fucking idiot.
Well, yeah, that's a foregone conclusion.
Just want to throw that in. Well, how stupid is that? But anyway.
I'd like to just say at this point, you know, and we've just said they had some great segments on this program so far, and then they do this. Everybody in AEW that won't just come out and walk up and tell that little Weasley motherfucker what the problem is a fucking idiot. Because there's a few that know, but they apparently won't say. And the rest of them are just happy to be there because nobody else would ever put them on national television. So I think the fucking idiots are the people that don't have the balls to go up to Tony Khan and say, look what is being done to you, and you look like a fucking moron.
This is what he likes. He likes this.
Well,
This is his choice. At the end of the day, this is his choice.
If I found that guy from Germany that had his balls nailed to the step stool with 10-penny nails, I would still go up to him and say, you're a fucking idiot, and here's why.
And he would tell you, but I like this. I like having my balls hammered into the step stool.
All right. Anyway, back in the back, Officer Bar Brady was with Lance Archer and Jake Roberts. And did you see Marvez pitches to him with, oh, hey, what's up? Or something like that. And Jake just mocked him, just right out mocked him. Like, oh, hey, what's up? And then Lance Archer runs away from the interview, goes in the locker room, and they have found 4 of the smallest professional wrestlers that they could possibly find. I mean, stunt. Old Marco Stunted Growth would have fit in this group. And Lance Archer beats them up in the locker room. And this might have worked if we just hadn't seen guys fighting in the kitchen for 20 minutes. We go straight from the guys who have fought all over the arena and done everything to each other you could do to Lance Archer doing the same thing for a minute and a half or less in the fucking locker room with guys we don't even know who they are. What the fuck? Next match, go ahead.
Did you see Archer throw the one guy into the ceiling?
Through the ceiling, yes.
That was all right.
He looked just like Todd Champion did that girl at fucking Simon Malone's Bar and Grill in Atlanta one time. She wanted to be picked up, and he was 6'6" and a big wrestler, and he picked her up straight into the ceiling fan. Knocked her fucking lights out. Cops were looking for him the next morning at fucking, yeah, down at Simon Malone's after the fucking matches one night. All the guys were there, and she said, "Ooh, you're a big wrestler. Lift me up." And he put his hands under her armpits and lifted her straight up and head first into the ceiling fan. Looked like she'd been hit with a fucking hatchet. Anyway.
Oh my God, jeez.
So the next match was Diamante versus Ivelisse. And thank God for this match because I was running late. Fast forward, don't give a fuck, don't know who won.
All right, now let me stop you here because everyone keeps sending in letters and emails about this. Will you just say you don't like women's wrestling?
I do like women's wrestling if it's good. There's just so little of it that's really good, and I don't have time to watch this fucking measly shit. It don't have to be equal. NXT is even worse. If it's 50% men and 50% women, then guess what? That means that you've stunk your own show out because there are not an equal number of really good women wrestlers and really good men wrestlers in the world. So you are leaving much more talented men off every time you put an extra girls match in because that's just the fucking way it works. If you keep them as an attraction, You build around the ones that can really go, the Charlottes, the Ripleys, the whatever, the Becky Lynches, and feed them fucking people and then put them together on pay-per-view. That's the way to do a women's division. Just having half and half, because we had 3 men's matches. Now we're going to have 3 women's matches. You're going to get a lot of fast forwarding out of me. Fuck it.
Have you ever seen Ivelisse before?
No, and I don't care at this point because I've seen all this bad wrestling and I know I've got to watch this goddamn clusterfuck of a fucking main event.
That's what I'm saying. It's one thing if you say, well, I've seen this person, I don't need to see this again. If you haven't seen Ivelisse and, was it Diamante? Diamante.
Yeah, I can't even pronounce their names.
Then you're prejudging it. You're fast forwarding without any
what I'm saying
opportunity
is that,
to prove you right or wrong.
Hey, I'm saying the goddamn house is on fire. We don't need to worry about the color of the living room carpet.
All right.
Priorities. Anyway, because we got to see Adam Page versus 5. The former Allen Angels, who's now 5 as a member of the Dork Order. Adam Page looks great. He mostly toyed with the guy, but what the fuck again? Every unsigned fucking wrestler in the world that looks like an athlete, and here's another fishy white tattooed up midget on national TV being used in a spot. What the fuck? Is it just because he'll drive in a pandemic? I don't know. They have this match for a little while. Page is toying with him. The Dork Order and the Minions come to the stage without fucking Brody Lee, the black hole of charisma. They went to break. This match was worth picture in picture, apparently, to them. 2 segments. Why does it take Page anywhere near this fucking long?
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. Adam Page can't beat 5. Yeah. Not Brody Lee, or even Stu Grayson, or Pizzeria Uno, or 10. I think that was the other guy who had just a number. Wasn't 7 the son on Married with Children? But 5 goes through a commercial break.
Anyway, Powerbomb 1, 2, 3 by Adam Page when he finally got in the mood to. And then after forever, Brody Lee and Colt Cabana come out to the stage with the rest of the fucking dork minions. And Brody sleepwalks into the ring and does one of those monotone auto-answering voicemail recordings. You have reached 456-78910. Please leave your message for Brody after the tone. Anyway, he asked Adam Page to join. Page declines, as we knew he would. Brody Lee threw his last line away, which is to threaten him. But this guy cannot in any way, shape, or form not only do a promo, I don't even think he can speak in a normal manner to people. If he's having a conversation, they're riding down the road and he's in the back seat, I don't think he can speak normally. This is the worst promo on any pushed human being in the history of wrestling. So he throws out his line. He walks out with Colt, and then the Jobber crew attacks Adam Page, and FTR make the save with a styrofoam cooler. And they hit the heels over the head with it, and the ice and the beer falls, and the heels run off. Twinkle Toes McFingerbang shows up late to help his partner out. The heel team that's being cheered like babyfaces, FTR, helps his partner out. Fucking Olivier's late. He shows up dressed like a douchebag in a t-shirt, jean shorts, and fucking sneakers with those short little fucking socks on his feet and his sneakers and a confused look on his face like Harpo Marx on Quaaludes. They've got FTR making saves when they ought to be the heeliest heels in the company. If you add up the time that the Dork Order has been on television, and imagine if it was anybody else with any talent, how good would it have been? And that was that.
They have like a stable of 8 guys, and it's the worst act ever. And they had go-home heat with the AEW fans before the pandemic.
The Dork Order has been the only ones to prosper from the pandemic because if they don't have any fans in the building, real fans, then they can't get booed out of it.
This is all. This is all the Bucks. This is
one more match, and I got to hurry because now Harley's licking my leg like she wants something to drink. Chris Jericho and Sammy Hagar against Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus with stunted growth in the corner at least, so he couldn't stink it up too bad. Positives, we've got heels and faces here. We can figure that out. They've figured it out. I wrote, the shame is Jericho could do so much with Jungle Boy, and he's fucking around with Marco stunted growth and my little dog pockets. But he, anytime they were in, you could tell that could be money. But almost immediately they put the big men in together for a sloppy fucking brawl. They didn't milk it. They didn't let Hager come in and overpower Jungle Boy and then tag the bigger partner in. They just fucking tagged them both in almost immediately. And they did awkward, sloppy shit and did little for anybody's image. Wrestling image, the viewer's image, anybody's image. Then they got heat on Luchasaurus, even though he can't sell. And when he does sell, he just sits in one place. And they just kick him. And they get 5 minutes of heat on his leg, and then Luchasaurus just goes into a running spot and stops selling it. Then they did simultaneous cold tags to Jericho and Jungle Boy, that just the coldest tags. I mean, their hands fell off from frostbite. They didn't even try to fucking build a hot tag. Then in the middle of whatever the fuck, Marco Stunt jumps in and Hurricane Rana's Jericho behind the referee's back, and they go to a break. When they come back, Jericho's working with Jungle Boy. That was good stuff. They got some heat on Jungle Boy. They had a long argument between Jericho and referee Aubrey about the bat, which is where I noticed at first that they are sweetening this crowd way too much. Did you notice this?
I've noticed it a few times. It wasn't specifically during this match, but I've noticed it a few times lately.
Well, I mean, I know they've got people there, but there's a lot more noise than the people in the Daily's place are making. They're sweetening it, and it's being obvious. Oh, here's Baby. Hey, Baby, say something to the people. Harley Quinn is sniffing the microphone. Yeah, you see, do you hear that snort? That's what she thinks every time she sees AEW. There's two things Harley Quinn won't watch on TV. One is 2001: A Space Odyssey. The soundtrack gives her anxiety and she whines and leaves the room. And second is AEW wrestling because it insults her. Yes, she doesn't. Yes. And she is obviously the offspring of wrestling royalty, so she knows more about booking than they do. Anyway, this went way too long. Jungle Boy did a nice double DDT counter and another cold tag. There was no hot tag in this match. It was all obvious. There was no way to stop it. It was just flat and bleh. Luchasaurus made a decent comeback. Did a kind of a bleh false finish with Marco Stunt involved. Jungle Boy did a flying what the fuck that took Santana and Ortiz out on the floor, and then a masked man jump up and hit Luchasaurus with the baseball bat. And Jericho, so there's another bat, but this one didn't have barbed wire around it. That's, as a matter of fact, Jericho's been using the bat that he calls Floyd after Floyd Lawson, the barber on the Andy Griffith Show. He's been using a bat. Moxley came in with a fucking bat wrapped in barbed wire. Does that mean Moxley's bat's better than Jericho's bat? But then Jericho's bat actually won a match for him because when they hit Luchasaurus with the bat and Jericho hit his finish, he won. So dueling bats. Maybe they should have a baseball fucking game. Don't do it on the football field. Have actually play baseball. Whoever hits the biggest home run, their bat's more powerful. Anyway, the heels get heat. And the masked man turned out to be Sammy Guevara, and he is back not 1 minute too soon. They need some fucking help. And that was that. They started out and they had it, and then they lost it, and they couldn't get it back. And this match went so fucking long. And Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, neither one are ready for that as a tag team. I think Jericho could get anytime you wanted out of Jungle Boy, but in a tag team match, and Hager, this made him look greener than a fucking pepper tree too. This whole thing just didn't work very well. Baby, you're sitting on my headphone cords. Watch out now. You got your leg all tied up. There you go. Daddy will be done.
Right. Well, that was AEW.
Daddy will be done soon of this shitty wrestling, and then we'll go and play and romp. Yeah, fucking sucked. And I'm going to close with two things. I'm going to close with an email I'm going to close with two emails. One to close the AEW part of the program. This was sent to us. I won't reveal the person's name, but it was an interaction they had on apparently last week's AEW program. My daughter was in the room during AEW last night. She's 7. She doesn't watch much wrestling, except when she decides she wants to spend some time with Dad while he's watching it. Then she gets bored within 5 minutes. So she sits down next to me during the Jurassic Express promo, and she asks about Marco Stunt. Daughter, is that the other guy's son? Me, no, he's a wrestler. Daughter, what? How is he a wrestler? Me, he isn't actually a child, he's just small. The match starts. Daughter, oh, he is going to wrestle. She becomes very interested and curious. Marco isn't getting any offense. Daughter, I don't think he should wrestle. Later in the match, daughter, so he doesn't really wrestle, he just does tricks? Me, what do you mean? Daughter, he's just doing tricks. The match progresses and everyone is doing high spots. Daughter, so are they wrestling or is everyone just doing tricks? Me, they are wrestling. Daughter, but they are also just doing tricks. They need to wrestle to win, not just do tricks. So yes, my daughter is apparently a 7-year-old Jim Cornette.
That was emailed to us. Apparently, the person saw that on a message board and sent it to us. I don't know if the actual emailer, if he was talking about his daughter.
Well, regardless, the point is 7-year-old kids can figure this out. But the blind spot comes from the people who are actually doing it. Cannot admit that they are just fucking lost.
I like the idea of calling all these excessive high spots tricks.
Yeah, tricks. Silly wabbits, tricks are for wrestlers. Anyway, and oh goddamn, I guess that was the email, because I don't have another one. I thought I did. I was going to close with that, just to try to bring us up a little bit after that review.
You want to close with the ratings?
Okay, what are the ratings? Tell me who won this battle of attrition this week?
It was completely one-sided this week. NXT, 615,000 viewers. AEW, 845,000 viewers.
Oh!
The most viewers they've had since before the pandemic, since March 18th.
So you mean to tell me in just 2 weeks of doing this again, we have brought them back 300,000 of their disenfranchised viewers?
I don't know if I would say 300,000, certainly
about 250.
Well, there's certainly some people who are watching specifically, we hear from a ton of them, to hear you critique the show. The same way there's a lot of people in that company listening every week to hear the critique of the show.
Well, I got to admit, they gave it to him right at the start, because if I saw Cody and Zabada, old Eddie Kingston, first, I wouldn't have left that program, and the other guys started out with friendly Professor Keith Lee and his Bob Ross painting promo and Dexter Lumis and Killian Dane. So they gave it to him at the start.
But, you know, I always think that it's also week-to-week momentum, and NXT has lost the momentum since Keith Lee won the title a few weeks ago. That
True.
It was the 2 weeks of Sasha Banks, which got people that maybe wouldn't normally watch NXT. Although my argument is still, there's a pool of people between 1.3 and 1.5 million people that are going to watch it on Wednesday night. And some of them, you know, there's 600,000 guaranteed to watch NXT and 600,000 guaranteed to watch AEW.
And the other ones are bopping back and forth.
The other ones are like, what show appeals to me more? What show has the momentum? And AEW, the specific show, the first half of the show was good until that Falls Count Anywhere match.
But I tell you what, I've said before, you know, the bad shows have a cumulative effect, and a bad show shouldn't necessarily do a bad rating. It should be the show after a bad show that does a bad rating. And last week's show was fucking rotten. So they said, okay, they had the mystery of who's the top independent guy going to be, and they wanted to see some of this stuff. And they saw it, for better or worse.
It's been weeks since we've had a Cody promo.
Does he speak still? I thought.
Does Arn speak?
Well, I thought his neck tattoo, the needles must have severed his vocal cords.
We're going to find out Arn Anderson had his tongue cut out.
All right. Let's cut our tongues out till the drive-through this weekend, where we're going to hopefully have some kind of classic watch-along to cleanse our palates from the modern wrestling. And there you go. And next week, we'll see what they can do to change our mind about anything. You have any closing thoughts?
Nope. We'll see you on the drive-through. Well, patreon.com/Cornette to access the archive. We are now in 2015.
Well, there you go. That was your closing thought. My closing thought is I don't want to watch any more modern wrestling, but I guess we will again next week. Until then, folks, thank you, fuck you, and bye-bye, everybody.